Hey everybody, welcome to Dialog Choices Podcast. There's no punctuation in that sentence. Goodbye. Or there's no spaces in that
This
sentence.
isn't. You're not Yak.
Yachity. You're not Yachity Krishiv.
No, you're not him. No, yeah. Can't
You're
do
not
zero
Yachity
punctuation.
Cashew
He's actually he's slowed down a lot.
Space bar fame.
I don't watch him anymore, but like whenever I catch,
I've watched every
stuff.
Zero Escape. What? Zero punctuation for the last decade.
So
what?
if
Have
you
you
go back
really?
to the old ones? If you
I
go
remember
back
when
to the
he
old ones,
he used
he
to
was
start
really
every
committed
episode.
to the bit.
He used to start every episode with like copyright music, and then I was like sad that the expression went away and it just became just the fucking like same generic intro
it's
that's too loud
cool.
every episode, and he's had
I
that
like
same
it.
he's had that same theme song for like
6,
almost
7
as long
years?
as I've been using Undertale Ruins for credits. People freak out sometimes when they get to that part of the game and the song
it's
hits
so
them.
jarring. It's so jarring because it's like, I mean, even detached from the fact that it's your specific outro music. So what are you doing, game? But
What are you doing, game?
it doesn't fit very. I mean, it's a nice piece, but it doesn't fit very well as a soundtrack. It's just so in your face. It feels like you're in a cutscene.
I love that song. It's such a nice little thing.
It's good. It's good.
I should probably like get a professionally done like different thing at some point. That'd be the smart thing to do. But one, I don't like working with random new people, which is what that invariably involves. And two, how the fuck do you commission music? I don't know.
That's easy.
I have no idea how to say what I want or anything like that. I hate that
You
entire
point to
process.
things. You point to things and say, "Hey, I like this stuff," and then the musician or the band. Usually, I mean, if it's a producer, but usually this sort of stuff is done by producers.
I was thinking
who
about
are
for like
just-
the entire run of like I think like Best Friends Play or whatever. They always used like just various covers of a song that is just a Kirby song. So I was like, hang on a minute, you got covers of it, but it's still just the original. It's still not your song. Like
Yeah,
Glass
that
Houses and all
Yeah, but
that.
a cover.
But I'm like confused.
I think a cover is okay though, right? I think a cover gets away from legal issues.
It does specifically if you're not trying to sell the cover. If you're using it as a sort of,
I mean, if your
like,
only
the
goal is to
video
not
isn't
get
about the
copyright
cover.
detected out by YouTube's bots, then yes, a cover is helpful. This is all like legally gray stuff to begin with anyway, but like it's like
get
who knows?
legal up in here. He knows this stuff.
But I just
or
every
the
now and
other
then I
one.
think about like if for some reason instances of the song Ruins from Undertale start getting claimed, it's not great for me.
That's true.
I'll be getting 3 million emails in one day.
You
Just
don't
wait
have that many.
until, just wait until Toby sells the Undertale franchise.
So it
for
sells-
like $1 billion.
Toby sells
Yep.
Undertale to Microsoft, and Microsoft claims every instance of its soundtrack across the entire internet.
The good thing is
luck.
because it's not like it's just an outro, so you can ask YouTube to edit out the sound of
And there'll just
the
be
outro. So
just thousands of videos with cursed, garbled outros that make a
no, you
weird
can just
noise
mute.
removed
You
sound.
can mute.
And
Yeah,
then,
you can, that weird noise.
I'd also
removal
probably have to do
only
them all
happens-
individually, knowing YouTube.
That's true. Yeah, they don't have
Which
the
is
tools for
Cursed
anything.
across like 10,000 videos that probably have that.
No, I'm pretty sure you can do mass music removal now.
Oh, nice. I hope so. I mean, I don't fear Outer Wilds.
It's
claiming
basically
their ending
you go
song.
to the copyright section, and then it will have like these are the things that fucking whatever, like yeah, these are like what people have requested to be removed or whatever, and then you can click on it and just like blah 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 add multiple or like
So you
change that.
so you've never actually had people comment about, hey, your outro music is from an Undertale. You have people commenting about,
I'm sure
hey, I played
people have.
Undertale and your outro music shows up.
I mean, they don't think that's not what they think. It's just they get jump scared by it showing up in any other context because it's so heavily associated with this. It's like how when one person overuses like a public domain song and it becomes part of the identity of their channel, and then anyone else uses it just incidentally, and then that just makes everyone think about that other channel instead, even though that's not their song either.
Yeah.
Or like how I had Mischief Makers on my fucking editing timeline of being like, I'm gonna use Mischief Makers music in this video essay. And then fucking H Bomber Guy used it like fucking crazy in that Tommy Tallarico video. So I'm like, well, there goes that. Now they're just gonna think I'm copying H Bomber Guy if I use Mischief Makers music. Didn't realize that this would be a thing that'd be competition for. Anyone else would remember fucking Mischief Makers?
It's fine. You can copy. You say the delicious egg thing. Nobody gets it.
I mean, that's just fun.
That's fun. Yeah, that's really fun. I don't know where.
I already ripped
Like, it
people
feels
off
on the
enough
original video.
because that's just what it's like to have any kind of in joke or just this is what references are. People just like have a thing they like that they thought was funny, so sometimes they say it in other stuff, and so that's just what happens all the time. But scripting it is different. Script.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that's fair.
That's just very deliberately taking somebody else's joke as opposed to me just saying gender at random during Let's Plays because gender happens
Also
at me.
referenced.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah, I love when
poisoned.
that happens.
I'm poisoned
I'm
inside.
just gendered all
Yep.
the time.
You can see a real with me and Andrew from back in the day. So you can see a real like trend towards like JonTron references that's suspiciously cut off on a certain year. And I wonder what happened.
Well, he stopped being funny, which was really the big problem.
And that's all that happened with JonTron.
That's pretty much all that happened. I mean, I still watch JonTron videos to this day, but like nothing in them is ever funny.
There really hasn't been a good one for like 8 years.
Yeah, I feel bad because it's like I know he has it in him. The problem is that he's
Does
just
he anymore?
he does.
Sometimes
I know
you
he
just
can
get
still
old
do
and
it.
sad.
There's like
You just
no
age.
man. I can see it. There's times where like I'll be watching an episode and I'm like, oh my god. He set it up. He set up a good joke. Let's go. And then he just doesn't follow through with it, which means that like there must have been a sit down where they're just like he must have filmed it and did it all and followed through the joke and then just cut it. Just said like, no, actually it's not very funny and cut it. Like I think he just doesn't have a sense of humor anymore. I think he like had it and then all the internet stuff happened and now he's just a decrepitly bitter, sad man. And
I do think
want to
about
be
that.
funny
I think
anymore.
about people that go through big internet controversies and how it might just end them as like somebody who can like think about their process or do anything. Because like this is not related exactly, but like, you know, like I have the surprise explosion of the essay stuff, and then I'm like, now it's like high pressure. It's like not as easy just to like write a 1 hour thing and just go because I'm like in my head about it all and all that. And so I think about like these people that like was it JonTron was openly racist online, like there's no excuses for it at all, but like I'm just trying to imagine the human being then be like, okay, time to go back to my YouTube channel and like like try to like reset and be a funny man, or like what is it,
and he did like multiple redos. Like he would like restart, do a couple of videos, and then just go away for like 2 years, and then you come back, try again, and then just go away. Like he clearly was stumbling to get back into it, and I get it. Like, yeah, I imagine being like a huge internet funny man and then being racist on that internet, and then trying to go back to being an internet funny man is not the cleanest method to maintain your career.
And then like on the other side of that collaboration from Once Upon a Time, you have like Aaron Hansen, Ego Raptor from Game Grumps, and you have like you have a long series of interpersonal pieces of drama with other YouTubers. You have multiple subreddits dedicated to stalking and harassing you and talking shit about you all the time. Like not just like, oh, some people on Reddit talk about you sometimes, but like there's literally like Conspiracy Grumps and Rant Grumps. Like Rant Grumps is dedicated entirely to just venting about how infuriating and stupid they think this one specific human being is, basically. And Conspiracy Grumps is about digging into the personal details of him and everyone around him in order to like originally was to solve the mystery of what happened with JonTron or whatever Once Upon a Time.
I remember that.
Yeah, because originally people thought that they're like there must have been some kind of fight or something must have gone wrong, and funnily enough, like the after years, there was that part where Aaron Hansen showed up in Starcade, and so it was like, oh wow, either they buried the hatchet or really they were always friends, and JonTron really did just move across the country, and there really was never a problem. They just weren't going to be local anymore, so they stopped doing the show. But then like 2 months later, he came out with all the super racist shit, and you're like, oh, maybe it was this. But then like because of the subreddits, I always think about like there's the this is where it's always important to think about like the homeless Gangnam Style video by Sarah Zed, or this video will infuriate you by CGP Grey, which is like some of the best videos on YouTube for trying to just express this idea of like when you have this insular community that's just motivated by getting points and like competing to make the most thing that would be effective for that community, it just incentivizes lying and misrepresenting things. And so when you have this Reddit that's entirely when you have a subreddit that's entirely about hating somebody for being trash or annoying or unfunny or bad at video games or whatever the fuck they're mad at that given day, and you have another subreddit dedicated entirely to these people have to be up to something. There's something up with these people. They're keeping something a secret. There must be something deeper to this piece of drama or that piece of drama. Like, they just will start making stuff up, and they repeatedly have, and they've even managed to make like things like accusations go viral in the past of stuff they basically made up.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of like a huge chunk of stuff, especially like the 4chan kind of community, and I like Kiwi Farms is the same way. All these like shitty, weird, I don't know what you like, internet stalking kind of shit, where the idea is that it's a culmination of people coming together to just perform a really awful task.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that,
somebody,
like, from the perspective of somebody like Aaron Hansen, like that's like you then have to go back and do your show again every day, and it's like, yeah, and it's also like not even one where you can like okay, I have good days and bad days, but on the good days I write this stuff and like I'll make some kind of progress. It's like you have to live perform and like pretend to be in a good mood and play funny video games with your friend when like you could be going through some shit all the time because of these fucking weirdos that are obsessed with making your life hell, because they won't just like do the normal healthy thing when they don't like a YouTuber, which is watch someone else. They instead make it their whole personality to obsess over somebody that they don't like forever, when like there are so many infinite popular YouTubers that like I find out about another person with 1 million subscribers I've never heard of like every week. Like, so there's not not a dearth of options.
You owe them the content that they subscribed for, and they are not getting that content. So now you are a bad person.
And then of course you had Lindsay Ellis that got like canceled on Twitter for increasingly nonsensical reasons, because they're just harassment campaigns for the most part, or like the tiniest nugget of like good faith criticism surrounded by like thousands of people doing harassment over a thing that ultimately, even when you look at its starting point, was ultimately not a thing that justified even being much of a conversation to begin with. But like, it
that's
builds
also
up,
the way Twitter works. It's just like it
builds up to such a big thing that like, boom, one of the most long-term influential YouTubers is just gone. And so she just disappears because she can't write anymore. And then I think only recently, basically begrudgingly, to be like, okay, I have employees that are beholding to me and I don't want to fuck all of them over, she like started making Nebula videos. And I genuinely, sincerely wonder how much she even works on those videos versus it being a thing she voices and is powered by her brand. But for all I know, her staff writes and edits and she just like shows up to record just to keep them employed. But like, that's definitely
YouTube's
like
nuts.
I absolutely see why like Jenna Marbles and other people like that have just fucking quit after this or that happened, because like you don't want to face these people again at some point. Sometimes if things go bad,
I think also
and the community turns on you, it's a nightmare.
I think there's also a level of I don't think that there's a forever sustainability here. Usually what happens for most people in most fields, right? Even actors or like politicians. The idea is once you reach a certain threshold, once enough people know about you, then you expand out to other various areas of income. You write books, you make like you star in movies or shows. You want to diversify rather than just be the YouTuber. And usually controversy is such a good time to do that. Like, well, everyone hates me. I guess I'm just going to go focus on some other project. Once it all dies down, then I'll just, I've done a thing. And then you can, like divert, you can move away from a different location. But some people obviously don't have that luxury. You're not, I don't know, you're not like Markiplier. You can't just like, I'm going to go direct a fucking movie right now. It's like, well, oh, okay. Like you just abandoned YouTube for months to go do a project on the side. And now that's fine. He'll be okay for doing that. But there are other people that just don't have that option. And some people that just prefer to say, you know what? Like, I know Lindsay Ellis was writing books. She like just went off and wrote books while all controversy was happening. Like, okay, that's fine. Like, there you go. Look, you're doing something else. You're still creating. You're just not doing the exact same, I don't know, creative outlet. And I think Jenna Marbles is that way too. I think she still makes stuff, but she just doesn't do YouTube videos anymore. There's just like this, at some point you could just go like, nah, I'm done with this medium. I'm done creating these types of things. And you just move on to something else.
Yeah, it's the unexpected outcome of like people. When you get this kind of job, people inherently are like, when are you going to get a real job? Or like, what's your plan for after? Like this idea, like it's inherently a very temporary thing that'll definitely be gone in 2 years or something. Whenever and then you're still here for 8 years. But the unexpected conversation that those people aren't ready to even introduce because they don't have context for it is the idea that like actually the real concern is what do you do when like what if this job just becomes miserable? You literally can't create in that context anymore, because that definitely just happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, burnout is very natural and probably the like kind of the side effect of doing one particular thing forever. Like it just must be like aggravating. I get burnt out from doing a job, and my job is literally just nothing. Like I don't really do much all day, and I still get burnt out from it. Like it's just it's like if something isn't doing it for you, right? It's like, again, creative fields especially, like you need to be constantly engaged, constantly stimulated, constantly motivated. And if that's not there, then you can't make the thing. But if you can't make the thing, you die because you have no employment. Like it's a lot of, I don't know, it's just not the best way to do anything. I don't know. I'm very much of the idea that like
abolish capitalism.
You don't get any value, like you don't get good quality out of threats. Like I'm not, the threat of me not having a job isn't going to make me work harder. It's just going to make me find a way to work less but still cash in money. Like fuck you then. Like I don't need to put my effort in if you're just going to threaten me. I'll just do the bare minimum. And
it's called silent quitting.
It's not. It's not called silent quitting. You can't make up fucking words. It's just called laziness. I don't want to.
No, it's a phenomenon. Like, it's a phenomenon.
It's not a phenomenon. It's not. How do you silent quit? You either quit or you don't quit. You can't silently quit. No. It's like I haven't silently quitted.
It's when people like, yeah. I mean, this is.
It was so funny to me just because simultaneously, Andrew's refusing to engage with a term that has been floating around a lot that he's just never encountered probably. Yeah. But also just the thing he just said didn't make any sense. Of course you can silently quit, even if you take the words literally. It's when you just don't come back.
Well, yeah. So sorry, you can. you can definitely just walk away.
You don't put in 2 weeks. That's a pretty silent quit.
I am not silently quitting. I am not sitting here silently quitting my job. What I am doing is exactly what they pay me to do, but I'm doing it with the barest minimum of effort, which is not silent quitting. How is it fucking silently quitting? I'm doing my job efficiently. I am doing my job so efficiently. I don't need to fucking take part in it. What is silently quitting? What? Because I'm not killing myself on the fucking floor in the office? Like I'm not splitting my fucking wrist, dying for capitalism? Like what the fuck?
The filibuster.
Jesus.
There's a filibuster? Wait,
That's
what?
That's what we were trying to explain it, but Andrew's going.
Oh,
No,
right.
I'm so confused by what this means. What is
That's
this?
what we're
understand.
trying to say.
I understand your frustration with the definition of the term, but the term does
Sometimes
encompass.
words are weird, like global warming
They
when
are,
things do
yeah.
get colder.
That sounds
Okay.
like bad naming. You
Cool.
It's
that
bad
sounds
naming
we
because
incorrect.
name
the
everything
corporations-
badly.
It's bad naming because the
Everything.
corporations wanted to. Wait, which one? Yes,
Everything
that
we name
I
everything
am-
so poorly that we take things that once had names like Let's Plays and walkthroughs and start calling all of them streams when everything on the internet is streamed, no matter what. Streaming doesn't mean anything. You can just go,
Well,
everything
at
is
least
stream,
they're-
you fucker.
at
And
least
you,
they're
can't, you also
not- at
can't
least they're
call it a
not calling-
VOD. A VOD is also everything on the internet that isn't
Everything, yeah.
live. You fuckers.
It's the video on demand.
We had specific terms for things, and you reduce them all to stream and VOD, the most vague terms that encompass all of online video. You fuckers.
At least they're not calling it gameplays because that sends me up
Gameplay
a
is at least more
wall.
specific than stream.
No, gameplay
which doesn't even need
plural.
to be. Oh, that's just that's an Andrew apostrophe disaster. That's a deep cut. That's an old timey joke.
I don't get the specific reference, but I
It's
appreciate
just
the
that,
ribbon.
yeah, I mean, you can find this all over sad games
Because-
to this day, I'm sure. Just every time that there's a plural word, there's an apostrophe, and every time, and
Mhm.
usually,
Oh, no.
yeah.
Andrew, have you gotten better?
I don't think
No,
think
there's no
most people
point.
have it.
It doesn't. What like what's
I
the
haven't seen
value
this in, your in the recent
What is
videos.
there is no value in an apostrophe. It's just such a
You
fucking
put the
waste of
apostrophe
pixels.
though. That's what Keith is saying.
I'm not bothering. I'm not going to bother learning this thing that doesn't have any implication, impact, or meaning to life. Like it's just a fucking apostrophe. Get over it.
But
It's
anyway,
fine.
It's actually-
anyway,
you know
silent quitting is essentially a form of protest in the way that in reality what you're really doing is you're just doing your job, and you show up for work and you do exactly what you were supposed to do, and then you don't do any more work beyond that point. But because of like so much of like American culture and Japanese culture and so on is all about like this constant implication you're supposed to do even more, kind of like how you're not really supposed to take any of your legally mandatory breaks and stuff like that at most of your jobs and stuff like that, or they will suspiciously start cutting your hours and so on. Yeah. It's like there's
That's
we
weird.
have a-
I do
we have
pay
a
my
work- we have a work
legally mandated
culture-
taxes. Can I just
Yeah.
not do that? Is that fine?
We have a work culture that acts like the more you hustle, the better your future is going to be, as if you're not just being vampired by some company that doesn't care about you and does not really care about your upward mobility or your future. And so silent quitting is the idea of actually just doing the bare minimum for your job. And it's got that dumb of a term because that's how off base our entire society is, that the expectation that you should do what you were paid to do and you should be compensated for anything more that you do is so alien that this is like seen as like a mind virus taking over Zoomers and turning them and ruining the economy. And it's just the dumbest topic, really.
Yeah,
Always.
I'm looking at this article, and all I can see is that it's just explaining to me what working is. It's just telling me
what your work.
It's just,
What your work.
it's all it's literally telling me is like, oh, a person comes into work and does their job. What? Wait, what is working then? Does working not exist anymore?
It's the literal
no-
definition of your job. Like,
What the
not-
fuck did I
not-
get paid for? I get paid to come in and do a set specific task that I have been employed for, and then I go home. That is my job. That is working. I don't
might be that-
expect the president of the
it might
United
be that-
States to come to fucking work and clean my toilets at home. That's not his fucking job. Like, why would it be called silent quitting if he stuck to only doing his job? Is that not what you hired him for? Like,
well,
what?
but you're just being like that. That's not. You're not actually addressing the problem, though. It is a different type of behavior that people do. It doesn't matter what it's called. It is. I mean, what Keith said. It is true. That's what it's called, and it does encompass other types of non.
So who
engagement.
defines? Okay, so how is it
It's
necessary?
language, it doesn't-
But what I'm saying is, when I get employed, I have a contract, right? I am employed. I have a contract with a specific set of like expectations of me as an employee.
Not all
This is my
people.
job,
Most people don't
my
have
role,
that, though.
my responsibility. What do you? No one has role responsibilities. That is fucking
Yeah.
unlikely.
Like
Every job has role responsibilities.
My job description, for example, doesn't I don't have anything at all written about what I do in my daytime job.
So when they hired you, they told you nothing about what they wanted you to do.
In the sense that what they told me is all things that you're going to be doing stuff like this. You're going to be working with people like this, right? So once you're in a job, and especially when we're talking about quitting, like you've been there for a while, or at least for long enough that you have that people expect things of you. Like if nobody pushes you to, or at least me, if nobody pushes me to do things, I can just not do them, and nobody will say anything.
Why would you do them without being asked to by your job?
Because I don't want to. I want to stay employed and continue being.
Why
able to
would
pay
you
my
not
house.
stay employed by doing your job?
Because I'm not competitive inside of the marketplace of working things.
What does that even mean? So like you're telling me that because I'm doing the exact thing that I was hired for several years, and now that someone else has just without in asking me, apparently has decided that I need to be doing more things but isn't telling me to do them,
That is what
I am now
happens,
silently
though.
quitting. But how am I proactively quietly quitting if I am not being told the new fucking expectations for my job? I can't be responsible for something that I don't know exists. And if you don't tell me there's new expectations,
yeah, of course you can.
then no, I can't. That's literally how language works. I can't be held responsible. Like
if you have responsibilities. Oh no, sorry, I misunderstood what you said. You're saying being responsible for things you don't know. That's not what silent quitting is. It's being responsible. It's if nobody else knows, you're not responsible for it. Right?
It says quietly quitting refers to doing the minimum requirements of one's job and putting in no more time, effort, or enthusiasm than absolutely necessary.
There it is.
Unless I'm asked to, I'm not going to. You need to tell me to do something. Otherwise, I won't do it because that's not my fucking job. My job is to perform a set amount of tasks for money.
No, that's not true for the vast majority of people.
What?
Because if you're responsible for things that you are. Like it's your job to do that. Like if it is like cleaning the aisles, if it is managing a team, if it is leading the design phase of a game, whatever it is, there's proactiveness required of your job, right? It doesn't matter because nobody's going to tell you, hey, there's aisle 3 is like somebody. I mean, in good places they will actually tell you that because they have their systems. But if it's a small shop, right, you're just the clerk and it's like aisle 3 now there's a spill. You're going to be the person to clean that up because it's your responsibility, right?
Yeah.
And nobody has to tell you specifically to do that.
Well, and only if I've been told specifically to patrol the aisles to make sure there's no spills. But if I have not been explicitly told that, I'm not going to fucking walk around the store like some degenerate weirdo lost in a fucking supermarket with a broom waiting for someone to fucking drop shit.
That's why it's called silent quitting. It's called silent quitting because that sort of attitude gets you fired eventually.
Just tell me. Come up and say, Andrew, I want you to walk around the aisle.
That's why it's quitting. Because you eventually do get fired. Because like what you're saying, like if you were
that's quiet firing. That's someone else's fucking problem.
I got quiet fired from Best Buy.
Yeah, that's
at
keeping
Best Buy,
quiet.
I did what they told me to do, and they
like
clearly
imagine
kept reducing my hours until I was eventually getting 4.5 hours once every other week. I was very quiet fired. That was functionally like not working there. Every time I came into the store to work again, the entire store would have been moved around again, and I had to learn where everything was again.
Quiet quitting implies specifically that me, the employee, is to blame for the attitude or blame for the lack of enthusiasm, which it is not. I am doing exactly what I've been told to. It is, in fact, managers' problems for being so fucking shit at their job that they cannot tell their employees what is exactly expected and required of them so that they will perform that task. I have
It
no
doesn't work
obligation
like that.
to go out of my how. Yeah, it does.
Most jobs you can't be told all of the details. You're told things in general, and then you figure it out.
That's fine. There.
That's not that. But when you silent quit, there's no more figuring it out. It's just no.
What?
Nobody told me to clean that. That's
From
it.
what it says it puts in no more time, effort, or enthusiasm than absolutely necessary, which means I'm doing my job exactly as expected of me, but I am not doing anything above
as
my
expected.
station. I'm not doing anything that is exceeding my role responsibilities, which I'm not going to fucking do
That's not
unless you
silent
pay me
quitting.
to do it. Or you
If you're behaving as expected, you're not silent quitting.
what? That's
You're just
what
sort of doing your job.
It says putting
It isn't
in
though.
more time, effort, or enthusiasm than absolutely necessary. I'm doing
Absolutely
my
necessary
job.
implies that it is not expected that you do that.
What?
You said the word and you went past
Usually
it.
we
but you
have to
need go
get
back
2.5 hours in before we get to the half-an-hour semantic discussion of this podcast.
No. Andrew is not. I'm stuck on that word because you said specifically you're doing your job as expected. No, you're not. You're not doing that.
Am I not?
No,
Literally
you're not.
have, for me. So
No,
for
you're
me,
not.
I literally have a fucking sheet that tells me exactly what I'm supposed to do. My job down to the fucking letter. And that is exactly what I do. I don't do anything else. I don't go above and beyond. I don't exceed those role responsibilities. I do fucking exactly on that paper because guess what? That's what you told me my job is. And if you want me to do anything outside of that paper, guess what? You need to tell me what I need to do outside of that role because I'm not going to go out of my way.
Andrew.
I'm not going to do other things because guess what? I could also just get fired for going out of my fucking zone. Because that's also a risk. So no, fuck you. I'm not going to go and do more effort if I can be at risk of getting fired. But doing minimum effort gets me fired for fucking quietly quitting. What is this? You can't.
What I'm trying to say is that most jobs are not like that. In fact, people who work in tech, there's like this thing. I kind of thought of mentioning it before, but there's this thing called overemployment for specifically tech people. In work from home has allowed this to be a thing where you basically work for 2 companies or 3. Because like a tech person, depending on the job, but a lot of tech people just work like 2 or 3 hours a day, and that's it. And they are paid for a full-time thing. So you have enough time in a day to jiggle to full-time jobs if you want, and especially because
really
people in tech
unhealthy. It's much.
It is. I'm sure.
Better to just take a nap and play video games or something. Like, what are you fucking doing with your life?
100%. But it is a thing, overemployment in the tech sector, where like even if it is written in the contract that you cannot have another daytime job, people just do it on the sly and it's just like get paid fat cash because it's tech.
They're quiet double working.
That might be
new terms. We're gonna be so scary now
with all the layoffs. The thing, like, it's
quiet employment
that it's fraud. It's bullshit.
Anymore. We can't let people be employed. Get them out of here.
It's bullshit that it's fraud, but it is fraud, legally speaking.
How is it fraud? What do you mean it's fraud?
Because your contract specifies that you can't have another daytime job.
Is that legally binding?
Prioritize employers over employees, basically.
But I mean, is there a precedent to say that is illegal?
The term is overemployment, and I haven't looked it up in specific, but I've seen.
Okay. I was gonna say it doesn't matter what a contract says. A contract doesn't mean anything. It's up to the courts to decide whether a contract exists.
Yeah, it's the laws.
So like, if someone says like you can't have 2 jobs, okay, fight me, bitch. I'll go to fucking court. We'll see if a judge says I can have 2 jobs. Like you don't get to decide that. I get to decide.
If you're in Europe, you might be able to decide that, but in the US, where this is specifically a thing.
I'm in California, so I definitely can win that argument. I'm not in some crappy place that has bad worker protections.
I wouldn't know. You know better.
We're not big fans of workers' rights here.
No, you even moved the 1st of May. You moved it to like the 31st of August or whatever, just to make your workers not celebrate the day of work of the worker alongside the rest of the world, basically. Not world, but a lot of countries. It's wild that to me. There's like it's down to the minutia of pettiness. It's incredible.
50% of the United States workforce is quietly quitting. I'm gonna fucking kill somebody. What do you mean?
Andrew just figured out he's quietly quitting for years.
Half of the United States is quietly quitting. Well, then they're not fucking employed, I guess. Like what? What do you mean?
You're still employed. That's why it's quietly quitting.
What is quitting? What is the word?
No,
quitting
no,
mean?
that's a different word. That's a different
I
word.
can't
You
do
can't
this
just-
anymore.
Yeah, okay, let's move on. Let's cancel Keith.
So
Let's
dumb,
go.
dude.
I can't
have
do
a- we
this
have a-
anymore.
We have a subject
I'm
where
sorry,
Keith gets canceled.
This is just
You're-
like this is what
You're
happens
both
when you
yelling
let
about a thing that as far as I can tell, you're both in favor of. So you're just yelling about the words in
No.
the conversation, basically.
And then
I-
he's bringing
yeah,
up a
that's
different
what I've been
word. He's saying quitting.
what I've
I'm not
been at
saying
it the
quitting. I'm
entire
saying
time.
silent quitting.
My whole thing is that it's not. I am not quietly quitting. I am just employed. I am just doing a job.
Buddy,
I am not
you're in the
quietly
tech
quitting.
section, man. It's
we
different.
can't do
It's
this
different.
again.
Okay,
I'm just
okay.
saying,
Let's
that's
talk
my
about
entire-
Planescape Tournament.
No.
No?
No.
Which one was it? Oh, you don't want to talk about it. No spoilers, though.
How do
Maybe
you not
spoilers?
spoilers it? How do you talk
I
about
was gonna say-
Planescape's tournament without spoiling it?
I was gonna talk about your conclusions. That's true, actually. Spoiler alert.
Literally,
suppose.
how?
Yeah,
What?
fair. Good. You have more experience than me at this thing. You need to lead the way.
What does that mean? What thing? What thing do I have more
The spoiler
experience at?
casting.
Spoiler,
With the
just
spoiler
talking
casting.
about a thing and it having spoilers in it?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Sorry, my throat has decided that it doesn't want to spoiler cast. But what I watched, I'm still halfway through with your let's play of Planescape Tournament, and as soon as I saw the ending episode, I was like, I'm skipping to the bit where the cutscene happens, and I want to hear his final thoughts. Which I am sure there's a lot of your viewers that do that because you do provide
Sure.
a good service at the end of each
Sometimes
let's
when
play.
I'm emotionally there, sometimes I'm just like, oh, it's over.
I've seen that happen. It's like, okay, see you later.
And Planescape has a very abrupt ending.
It does.
It
Well,
really
especially
does.
the ending
It just,
that you got.
yeah, no, it just over. Bye. Like,
Yeah.
oh.
So Planescape,
I guess we technically resolved some things.
I think Planescape has the biggest flaw of Planescape is that it has combat in it, and it has the real time with pause combat of Baldur's Gate and things where it really doesn't fit. I think for what the game is going for, but at the time it was like a compromise because these days we have Disco Elysium, we have Pentiment, and we have games that we have Torment Tides of Numenera. But in a different way. We have RPGs that don't have combat at all, and that's still, and they're still considered RPGs, which they are. Well, like I think in many ways, Fallout 1 led that. Even though it isn't the first RPG that you can complete without fighting at all, but Fallout 1 you can technically complete it without fighting at all. And for years and years and years, I keep hearing people. I kept seeing RPGs being like, "Oh, you have so many non-combat oriented solutions for quests and things," but it's always games centered around fighting and Fallout 3 is a good example since we're talking about Fallout of that, where it is genuinely it's a game that genuinely tries consistently across the game to have non-combat oriented interactions with the world and interactions with the quests, and it honestly is the best. At the time, it was the best that Bethesda ever did that at all. Quest design, not necessarily writing, but quest design in Fallout 3 is fantastic for Bethesda at the time, and it does it still while in a game that is basically about shooting a lot of people and collecting the garbage that is around. Not in Fallout 76 style, but it's still Fallout 3 is about loot, about experience things and getting better equipment. Even though it has a lot of story and a lot of missions. But I think Planescape Torment has so much dialogue, and the problems are so focused on understanding the villains or understanding your companions or understanding yourself that it would have been a good game. It would have been what I'm saying, a good game. It would have been an incredible game if it have the presentation of Disco Elysium and things like that without combat at all. I don't know if did you mention that in your outro rant? Ramble?
I mean, I think I mentioned that somebody talked about the idea of what if Planescape Torment was a visual novel.
Oh yeah, that's what you meant. Yeah, I knew that. I knew I'd.
I saw something like that
Yeah.
in my Discord the other day, and I'm like, I mean, it wouldn't be the worst.
Yes, 100%.
Because the dialogue is basically what we're here for, and the combat is mostly just miserable.
It's miserable. It's worse than Baldur's Gate by leagues.
Yeah, I'm
in part because
reminded
of
of why I often feel like I need to make a spellcaster in these games, because if you don't make a spellcaster, you just click on the enemy and wait.
Yeah.
It's like
and
both,
hope that you succeed, because if you fail, you're gonna need to figure out what potion works for what thing.
like a
And that's
game
even
that
worse.
far back, like the protagonist essentially has 3 options for class. It's
There's
tanky
multi-classing.
melee, it's tanky melee, swift melee, and the spellcaster. And so 2 of those classes, you just click on somebody and wait, and the other class, you spend your spells relatively quickly, and then run out of them, and then have to then start clicking on people and waiting. Uh, I never
Yeah.
learned anything about multi-classing or how that works, or encountered anything about that
you need to read
besides
the
the fact that
manual.
some of your partner members have it. But
Yeah.
I don't see how multi-classing would change the fact that otherwise you're still just 2 out of the 3 classes are just a melee class. I
Yeah.
don't think I even
I think-
encountered a ranged weapon. I don't think that game has a bow
I don't remember. I don't think
or
so either.
gun, or any kind
No.
of crossbow. Or I think it's literally spells and melee is the entire game. It has one of the most rudimentary combat systems I've ever seen in any RPG.
Yes.
Including ones from
Yes.
back then. Like, you had more combat options
yeah,
in
yeah.
Fallout than you did in Planescape Torment, and Torment's definitely newer.
It is.
And I had
Released
and
on
we've
the
done an
first
entire
day.
podcast about my issues with Fallout, just being like, just as like a modern gamer going back and playing it and being like, wow, not even a little bit of a quest log, huh?
I've only finished Planescape Torment once, so I can't talk about it in the same terms that I talked about, or that I talk about Fallout. Because Fallout, and I think most games back then, they did expect players to just play them again and again. The people who liked it, so some missions were just obtuse for the sake of being obtuse, by hiding like. I grew up knowing for a fact that my journal would have incomplete missions at the end of the game, and that's it. Or that it would have bugged missions. Baldur's Gate 2 in particular, for example, I played most of my time as growing up, I played it without patches, and it would happen a lot that NPCs would just become uninteractable. You wouldn't be able to talk to them, and I couldn't figure out how to unstick them. So I just had I finished that game many times. Well, maybe not many times, but like 3 or 4 times, with a bunch of missions just incomplete because I could they were bugged. But what would happen is that each playthrough would be different in this, just out of the crappiness of the stability of the game, and sometimes the quest design, because sometimes I would just forget, "Oh, where was this guy again? Who do I need to talk to next?" Because there's no quest markers or anything, and sometimes the journals are just wrong, or there's no journal entry or whatever. So like, games were made to be like that, and these days that's just not what people are looking for. You're not looking for a thing that you can't easily delve into and extract as much as you can out of your first playthrough. And
Yeah.
and
I
it's
often
fine.
feel like in order to satisfy people in these playthroughs, I need to have like a Sherpa. Like I need like some hyper experienced player to like prod me to go in the right directions, or to just magically know when I'm missing dialogue, because the dialogue systems don't do anything to surface that there's more dialogue that you're missing somewhere in its giant trees. Because like you get used to the idea that like, oh, you pick these options that are on the base layer of the character, or they have like a bunch of functional dialogue, then one that's like, hey, I want to talk to you though, and then you talk, then from that menu there's a bunch of different dialogue options, and then like you pick each of those
Torment
options.
does that a lot.
Like normally when you're in that menu, you pick each option once, and there's maybe a choice or an opinion to express, and that's it. And then it loops back around to the main menu again, and you pick a different thing to talk about, like, oh, you seen anybody? All that stuff. But people keep telling me, and it's too late, but that I was like not I wasn't
exhausting.
I wasn't
dialogue
thorough
trees,
enough
basically.
about the dialogue, and I'm like, I thought I exhausted dialogue. I clicked on every option, and they're all, I recognize each option as a thing I've already talked about, where was the options I missed? It's like, oh yeah, in layer 4 of this shell, there's actually 4 different options you have to pick, and each time you do it, instead of looping back to the original question, it loops you back to the main menu, so you have to pick 3 options to get back to there, and then pick the other options. Like, it's like they hide them so well that you literally have to troubleshoot your party members having already known what the outcome will be to find the outcome, which is deeply frustrating. So everybody that just already knows the game, and who knows if they knew it organically from just brute forcing the game so much when they were younger, or if they just heard about the stuff over the years and now know so much about the game that they just inherently know where every party member's storyline goes, so they know that if they haven't triggered the thing, they need to keep looking for it. But for me, I'm just like, when I play a lot of these older RPGs, I'm just like, when are these companions ever gonna like open up or have a character arc or tell me their backstory or go somewhere? Like you kind of inherently look for like the Mass Effect 2 loyalty mission to pop up at some point, like where is some kind of larger thing that happens. And that is a pretty consistent thing. Like Mass Effect 2 is the go-to example just because it was such a concrete mechanic part of the game that you have to deal with it explicitly as like they literally like have a little badge, I think, saying whether or not they have their loyalty mission done. But like that was them systematizing or even just like labeling a system that like we're used to having in most RPGs. Like at some point your companion you have some kind of breakthrough with them, and there's probably some kind of task tied to that, like some kind of thing that's been bothering them. It's so rote that like even in like Pillars of Eternity, half the characters, you talk to them, they almost immediately dump their entire backstory on you, and then you get one task that's often is so brief that you're like,
you have 2 actually. There's 2. There's always 2 parts to their missions.
I don't know.
Get one later.
I played it years ago, but like Sagini, I think what her name was, or the dwarf hunter Sagani. Like, half these characters have such incredibly minor and brief tasks, and that's seemingly their entire calling in life. It's to the point where you're like, all right, well, I read your entire storyline in one episode, and then I resolved your entire mission in 20 minutes. Why are you still here? I'm on a really dangerous mission. Like, I don't think you want to be here anymore for what comes next. Like, in a lot of these cases, it's hard to... Yeah, I often talk about this in other games, but I'm just like, a lot of RPGs, it's a struggle to narratively justify why your party members are still there and why they're coming with you on the whole journey. It's very helpful. That's part of the cheat sometimes in having the stakes be the end of the world, is once people find out how fucked everything is, they have no choice essentially but to like come along because they're some of the only people that know about how things are. But like, Mass Effect 1 is pretty decent at organically having everybody kind of wrapped up in the narrative and be characterized in a way that where they would probably care about the specific thing when they got involved in it. But a lot of D&D style like fantasy RPGs, there's a lot of characters that are just like a conduit to their really specific culture and background to exposit that part of the world at you. And then it's often very tenuous what the fuck their actual life calling has to do with going on this dangerous mission with you, if they don't invent some kind of like life debt narrative or something like that.
Oh, I hate the life debt thing with a KOTOR.
And this is the thing that mostly works in Planescape, is that because in Planescape you're somebody that's looping over and over again, the secret detail for half of your party members is the fact that like their seemingly tenuous reasons for being with you are actually tied to the fact that they knew you before or and already like wrapped up in this looping narrative and all that.
Yeah.
But I found the entire final mission underwhelming, except for the part where you actually get to interact with the other iterations of yourself.
Yeah. That's the best part of the
whole...
Like
the puzzle and the horde of monsters at the beginning is just kind of miserable.
Yes.
Dayanara is one of the most genuinely interesting characters in the entire game, and I like I like meeting her at the beginning. I like meeting her dad, and I like the sensory stone that goes into her backstory and how fucked up it is, going between the perspective of the practical incarnation of yourself and her. And I like meeting her at the end. Like, she's one of my favorite parts of the game. But I don't find your mortality to be an interesting villain. Like I think that the conversation with him is just kind of not very. He kind of just comes across as just a villain, in the most generic terms for the most part, and like, and he's not interesting to talk to in the way that your incarnations are, because he's just not you. Like he's just not really you, but he's also like a character you're meeting for the first time to fight right now. So it's the problem I have with half of all RPGs is the final villain is a guy you've never met before. I'm like, cool.
That's why Pillars of Eternity does. I think that's what Pillars of Eternity does so well. Even though it was going to even do it better because they had a different plan that they had to cut short. It's just the sort of intertwining the final villain into a big grand narrative is so difficult. And it's not even about being difficult. It's very limiting to the type of stories that you are capable of telling. Because the story of Torment in itself is kind of vague. It's kind of it is not a game about the main story. I think it's a game about
Torment's weird. It's a cool game, but like it's so wrapped up in existing D&D lore and stuff like that like I felt like I was missing out on a bunch of information that was required to actually get what it was going for half the time. Like at some point someone told me that every party member is inherently an inversion of what they're supposed to be. Like it's like a critique or a response or an ironic take on like their class or background or species or whatever, their race. And I'm like, well, that's bad news for me because I don't know what the fuck those characters are. Like half of the characters I met, I have no idea what the baseline is for people like them. And you mostly never meet people like them in a way where you get an understanding of what they're normally like compared to that person. So, like, I understand the idea of like, because like they explain the the blood war so much, and the two types of evil kingdoms and everything, that I can get a feeling for like why it's interesting and unusual that Falls from Grace runs a brothel where everyone has where that's based around talking and is essentially in a way like acting as like a shelter for these women and stuff like that, and it's inherently like a contradiction to everything you've heard about demons, and also you kind of already know what demons are because you are a human in real life, and that is a trope. But I have no concept for what Dacon's people are like. They're completely almost incomprehensible concept. They're absolutely buck wild to even hear about. They literally are a thought-driven universe where their thoughts become real or something, and you never see what their kingdom is like or see what most of them behave like. All you know is that whenever you encounter anybody that's from that part of the multiverse or whatever, they probably attack him on sight, seemingly, or they're pissed at him. But that's not very informative about what they're like overall, so I don't know how he diverges from that stuff. And you just meet him in a bar randomly, so it's just... And all you have to go on is his description of stuff, which he mostly doesn't want to tell you. So I'm just like, what is this guy's deal? I don't really get it.
I really liked his dialogue, honestly. It was very whimsical. Not whimsical, but like evocative, I should say. But I also didn't get the nuances because I'm not a D&D lore nerd or buff, I suppose would be the correct term. But like... I think that's the biggest problem of Planescape Torment. You just mentioned meeting him at a bar. Stuff like that is just because it's a game rooted in D&D tropes, for one, but also in gaming tropes. Like you have to have the top-down perspective kind of forces big maps and open areas and freedom to talk to everybody. The thing about like talk to everybody is at the time Planescape Torment was released, is still completely down to the player to know in advance that you should talk to everybody. That's what you're there for. And these days games don't take that for granted. They sort of depend. Well, it depends on the games, admittedly.
But a lot of games will make some kind of attempt to surface characters that you're meant to notice in some way, instead of just being like, here's a cloud of identical character models, find the one that will talk to you.
Yeah, especially party members, because like the game does that for I forgot her name, the tiefling, and of course for Mort.
Yeah, you're required to recruit Mort and Anna.
Yeah, but he doesn't do that for many other characters. Well, at least before you leave Sigil, like you can just ignore Ignis or ignore
Oh yeah, because you never
What's-
need to
what's
go in
his name,
that.
but-
You don't need that bar basically, and that's where
Yeah,
Daikon
yeah.
and Ignis are. And
Yeah.
Falls from Grace is like an active hassle to recruit. Like it's a whole
Yeah.
process, but you're relatively likely to find her if you just go and try and check places out. She's the first NPC
Yeah.
in a prominent location, so you're at least likely to meet her. Modron, I think, is like a computer dude in the computer
I
dimension.
think you're forced to find him because of the quest
no,
to get out of there.
because I never met
No?
him.
Oh,
The,
no! Oh no! Oh, I didn't realize.
no, Nomodron, the computer guy, is inside
I
a
used him
like
to get out of there.
he's like in a parody of
Cube.
dungeon crawlers basically. Like he's a parody. Like his I mean the Modron Cube itself is a parody or a riff on like disposable repetitive combat based encounters, which feels like a kind of little biting commentary to come from a game that itself is, at least for
Is
the
that.
time, was probably leaning away from combat and towards dialogue more than usual. But in the modern context of going back to that game,
Just has so
yes,
much combat.
Planescape is absolutely full of completely disposable combat that doesn't need to be there, like all of the constant like all the
rats.
bandits and stuff like that. Like
The freaking mental rats or whatever.
the mental rats are barely a thing. It's really just the fact that like because at
what
least
is
when
the
you're
first-
at least when you're in a dungeon, you're fighting dungeons and so on. But like the fact that like the fucking camps are just full, the city is just full of thugs constantly attacking you all the time. It's like you guys already
You
had
did mess
the
up that though. That
no,
was your
I'm talking about
playthrough
all
experience.
of the thugs all the time, every 30 seconds of the entire map, no matter what, the
'Cause
whole
you
time you're in
pissed them
Sigil.
off. You pissed them off.
No, they were there from the beginning.
They were because you pissed them off right away. I think I remember being like, "Oh, he's gonna have an interesting
I
time."
don't think you're right. I think those thugs
Or
are
maybe I'm
always.
wrong.
I think the thugs
I
are
don't
always
remember the
in
thugs.
Sigil all the time.
I remember
but the point I was trying to make though is that like
yeah,
like they do have the angle of dangerous angles, the alley of dangerous angles. They don't need to have thugs attack you every 30 seconds throughout the entire world. Like you can already express that part of the narrative in the locations that they're actually in. But until you get through the alley of lingering sighs, the fucking thugs attack you continually until then, and then they disappear from the entire.
Maybe that's why I don't
completely
remember.
disappear.
Yeah, I think I'm. Oh yeah, because you did go in a different direction from me. I went there first. I think, and that's why I got the rats
go to
early.
the alley of lingering sighs first.
Isn't it just northwest of the exit of the starting area?
The alley of lingering sighs is the place you don't go to until you have already finished the entire dungeon area and recruited Anna, and then she takes you to where she supposedly found a body. That's the main story.
Yeah, I'm misremembering. Sorry. Yeah.
But like the game's so full of repetitive combat, and like if they're trying to do a commentary or something with the Modron Cube, it falls flat because like ultimately they're just replicating it. It's an incredibly tedious combat gauntlet where you have to try to draw a physical map in order to even figure out how to get through this place, but also like the encounters are tough enough that like I have to constantly go all the way back to the entrance to rest, to heal my party, because you can't even rest in empty rooms because they're dangerous. So you have to walk all the way back through the entire maze every time, heal, then go all the way back to where you left off. And I was like, oh, fuck this. this is not fun for me, and it's bad videos for the audience. I don't care. So I just abstractly know that there's a party member in there somewhere eventually, but he can go fuck himself because he's in like he's in some of the worst content I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's not a very good party member or interactable character. Honestly, I don't remember him being interesting or very interesting. There's some definitely low aspects
devastating.
of the game.
You would do all that for fucking nothing?
For nothing. Yeah, it is very. That's absolutely true. It's not nothing, but it's still like really lame. And it's I think that's the thing with the game. There's some lows to the narrative here and there. Part of it is because it's a game about philosophy in many aspects, and obviously the writers weren't experts in every single thing, and sometimes it's really interesting the way they sort of intertwine this sort of really standard and run-of-the-mill philosophy school into the world of Dungeons and Dragons, and other times it's just expository things about what experientialism is, and it's just like, oh, you're just reading a Wikipedia article at me, okay. Goodbye, Mr. Giant Hammer Man. I don't remember exactly how that went, but that's my
Hammerman.
yeah. I think it's later in the game. I think there's a smith, and he talks to you about this one philosophy that hasn't shown up yet. There's a faction also associated with it, but I forget the details.
The Sensates.
But I don't forget. Yeah, he might be. Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
They're probably the
Sensates.
single most prominent faction in the second half of Sigil.
Second half, yeah.
And you get to go to all the sensory stones. The first part of that is cool. The second part of that is not very interesting.
When I go
to the VIP part of the Sensei place, you get to have like a series of more viscerally interesting and also relevant to you memory stone experiences. But then there's another room where there's just like 20 short stories that are all just random, which is technically, yes, like what the Sensates are there for, so it makes sense. But as somebody who then chooses to then exhaust all of the dialogue, you're like, oh, what have I done? What have I done?
Yeah, I read 3 or something.
These are all just random stories that don't build on each other or connect to anything else, and almost none of them even connect to like the world I'm experiencing in like interesting ways. Like it's not like, oh, this is actually an experience of that blacksmith you saw over there, and it builds from that, because the Sensates are not people you know generally, so you're not going to find specific memories of characters you've met either.
It's a little bit like what Pillars of Eternity did with the memories of people, of soul memories that you see. I don't know if you remember. There's some people you can click on and you read this 5-minute long dialogue of completely unrelated to anything. It's just like some of them are interesting, or some of them are well written, some of them are goofy, but it's just unrelated. So I didn't do that at all in my Let's Play. I did, I skimmed some of them and I'm like, oh, this looks interesting, let's read this one.
Those were like the specific memories of those characters, weren't they?
No, they were the soul memories. They're related to the people whose souls where the soul was before. I think so. I might be wrong. I'm not. I don't remember exactly everything about Pillars. But what if all these things that we're talking about Planescape Torment, right? What if I told you that there's a game also called Torment that was set up to be the sequel or the spiritual successor to Planescape Torment that does not have random meaningless combat, that instead of forcing you to navigate through levels and sort of solve puzzles by navigating and just having to rest and fight in a bunch of things, actually does things in text. You can just go through adventures when it's complicated. You can do it in a text adventure that has characters, the party members that are meaningful to the story and engage with you directly. Not necessarily as here's this bit and it's unrelated. Well, Planescape Torment does that as well, to be fair. But I think Torment Tides of Numenera is the game I'm talking about. Is a lot better in terms of engaging all of your companions with the main storyline, and it's a game that you can finish without fighting at all. Even though I didn't do that, it's got an interesting idea. In combat, where, for example, you can basically force skill checks. Imagine you start combat with somebody who's really pissed at you, and you're like, oh, maybe I don't want this. Let me try to do this skill check here for this non-combat option. And while you're in combat, you do a non-combat option. And this only happened to me once in specific because I wasn't looking out for it. But it's kind of interesting because you're used in role-playing games where once you're in combat, that's it. That's your solution. You fight to the death, or to whatever cutscene comes after, and that's the solution. And Tides of Numenera doesn't do that. Even though you start combat sometimes, or sometimes you can start combat and still be allowed non-combat solutions, which is really cool. And the game does that. Did that to me specifically very close to the end, which was kind of a good highlight. And I remember them promising that. It's not very prominent, but it's an interesting way of solving the issue of sometimes people just want to fuck you up, and you just need to allow the game to tell that story instead of, instead of forcing and not force the player to fight, basically, because that's kind of tropey. That's what happens. That's Baldur's Gate's experience. It's just like there's all this preamble to every fight. There's the people telling their story, and I like it. I like it. And honestly, it works really well for a game of that age. But if you look closely, it's just preamble to you're gonna die, and that's what happens. They die.
There is a funny just kind of a pace to a lot of CRPGs where whenever you meet any kind of major villain, there's like a 1 hour conversation followed by you killing them in 30 seconds or less.
Yeah. Well, in Baldur's Gate, it doesn't happen like that. You usually die because they cast the spell that you didn't foresee, so you need to reload and.
Whereas in Torment, in Planescape Torment, you just taunt them with Mort, and then their AI turns off, and then you just watch people auto attack for a while, and then they die.
Yeah, Mort is a great tank. Absolutely.
Mort is fucked up.
He is also that. Yeah.
I can't get over the fact that they had the guy that in Torment they had the guy who voiced Q in Star Trek play the Angel, who has like 2 voiced lines in the entire game and then doesn't have any more voiced lines, like they forgot. And then he talks for like a half an hour, and my first attempt got really messy because he kept casting super level crazy spells and obliterating us with his overpowered nonsense. But then the second attempt, I just taunted him with Mort, and he just auto attacked for the entire fight. And so it was just everybody beating on this Angel like it's the printer from Office Space, and that was the boss fight. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And that's the last proper boss fight in the entire game. Especially if you mean like,
I think so.
Especially if you're talking in terms of like having like a party.
Yeah, that's
for the final boss fight. You don't get to have a party, and so if you're a warrior, the final boss fight is you just auto attacking, and it's like cool.
I don't remember.
Showdown.
Is it not possible to get more people to join you in last fight?
I don't know.
I think I was
I'm not the person to answer this. I had one experience with this game, and every time I play any older RPG or even New Vegas or someone, everyone's yelling about everyone's yelling about the possibility space that I'm collapsing by making these choices, and I'm like, I didn't even know I was making choices half the time. It's just I was trying to play the game.
That's normal. People who watch RPGs, they don't know. They don't know the mistakes that they made themselves when they play the game.
Yeah, it's well because you only know the dissonance between the playthrough you had and the playthrough you're watching, and how they don't match up. So when you're playing the game yourself, you have zero idea what kind of opportunities you're missing or what possibilities there were, because the game doesn't surface them, which is the problem I'm facing as the blind player, where I'm like, how would I? It's like I made a post parodying this in my community tab, like, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or something. Like, what did I fucking type? It was stupid, but I loved it. It's like, oh yeah, Fallout New Vegas veteran. As you can see in my spreadsheet I built over a dozen playthroughs, the optimum New Vegas experience is me humming to myself, turns left. He just went left. He went left. Shut it all down. Like, I'm just And it's like, obviously, like what they mean is, oh, I failed in the context. They mean like, oh, I didn't get the exact correct context for this like murder investigation and accused the wrong person and fucked over what could be like, who knows, like I failed every companion quest simultaneously somehow or something. Like it's like the level of intensity the responses have at the time. But like from my perspective, I'm just playing a game and just like, oh, what if I go over here, or maybe I can try this. And then it's like, you have no idea, you've cost the war effort thousands of lives. Like I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
I just killed some big mosquitoes. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So from my perspective, it's the equivalent of like, I turned left and that was the greatest crime. Like it's just surreal to see, like, I'm just playing along, vibing, hanging out in this here Fallout game, and then the videos come out, and then the comments just have a completely different experience.
There are definitely games, Fallout New Vegas for sure, but like old school designed RPGs are games where they have a cool story to tell, but you're not going to be able to see it the first time you play the game, or most likely you're not, and you're not going to understand all the nuance, and they're not. I don't think they're written and designed to be like that. They're not. Like, there's so much hidden stuff to, like, in particular for all New Vegas, to the nuance of the side quests and the way they relate to each other. And there's some glaring mistakes. Well, at least I consider them glaring mistakes in particular one, and I remember there being another one that I just thought of, but I forget. The powder gangers in Fallout New Vegas, they are slave labor. The game explains that they are slave labor, and nobody ever talks about that. They're just the NCR doing slave labor, which is what the game wants you to know. The game tells you that, and it is absolutely consistent with what the NCR is. It's just that nobody, no character in the game ever says. It's kind of shitty that they imprison people and then put them to work in the mines or whatever they're doing.
I
The
mean,
only
that
commentary
is a genuine blind spot in real life, so I guess it's realistic that people don't think of prisoners as slave labor, because that is a genuine real life
it is
hypocrisy. Is that people will look at somebody like the not the cons, I almost did it again. I've got like Caesar's Legion, and they're they basically brag about being slavers the entire time. And they'll go on about how savage the Caesar's Legion is for their slavery, while not giving a shit about the idea that NCR uses prisoners as a way of justifying slavery, which is what happens in real life.
Yep, 100%.
So at the very least, if there's any blind spots in Vegas, it's often in ways that are interesting and clever, because it is the thing that's like, it reflects reality in an interesting way and isn't just like a weird plot hole.
I agree.
This is why I didn't let anyone take the dam. It was all mine.
I think that's my ending as well. I don't remember. That was my last ending, not my first.
I'm accidentally aligned with NCR just because the Caesar's Legion sucks so much that I'm just like, well, I guess I'll help you in this situation, and then that happens 10 times, and you're like, fuck, I don't like the NCR. Why am I working for the NCR? And then I'm like,
because we live in a society, Keith. Yeah. We live in, that's the moral of the story. You're getting the experience.
I just had it recently where I'm just like, the fucking NCR is like, we want you to torture and interrogate this prisoner, and I'm like, I don't want to torture prisoners for the NCR. Then the prisoner's like, we like to use slave collars, and if I put it on just right, it constricts their blood flow in a way where they never get used to wearing it. They always remember it's there. And I'm like, okay, well, if you're just gonna fucking evil monologue at me, I guess I'll punch you for a while. God, why are you doing this to me? I don't want to work for the NCR. And now they're sending kill squads after me, so now they're just going to be madder at me, and I'm like, I don't like the NCR either. I don't want to be their friend. I just want to join the followers commune or whatever. That seemed nice. I haven't been to their like actual base yet.
Oh, it's the best. They're the best. Yeah.
My first interaction with Caesar's Legion was going to like the town with the lottery or whatever.
You killed them all.
And because I was like, I need to get into that house, and they were like, you need to fucking leave. I was like, no, look, I don't care what you're doing to these people, just let me go in the house, that's all I want. And he was like, no, sorry, get the fuck out. And so I just wiped out like the entire town and just walked gone to the house or whatever. And then
you cut off
like a couple hours later, I'm just like doing my business, I'm having a good time, and I was like, what the fuck are those weirdos doing down there? And I like bring out like my little binoculars, I look, I'm like, wait, are those like Romans? What are they dancing around for? And then I noticed they're like walking towards me slowly, like, and it's just like a hit squad. It's like a hit squad there to kill me forever. And I was like, oh, I guess I have to deal with this now. And so I just like beelined it over to Caesar's camp to wipe them out immediately. Just like I had to get rid of it because it was like such an inconvenience to have people just like I'm just in the middle of doing a quest and I'm like, hey guys, how's it? Get him. God, can I just talk first, and then like we just set a time and date to go like do a stupid showdown in the street? Like,
a lot.
Stop.
That's why you save a lot, so you can deal with them. They show up. Okay,
I'm confused about Caesar's Legion because
I don't have time.
They keep hating me more and more, and then I still keep getting to walk into their camps and talk to them all like their quest givers. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why do I not shoot on sight? But I also think I figured out why I kept mixing up Caesar's Legion and the cons. And it's because I think the cons were the villain that filled the similar role in Fallout 1.
Yes.
So they practically feel like the same people, up to including being like the slavers that are coming in from the outside and being a nightmare.
The slavers in Fallout 1 is different, but the cons also weren't very nice.
Well, aren't the cons there to enslave Tandy?
They are, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that's why I'm
But
mixing
they're
up Caesar and the
slavers.
cons, because they're like
Oh no, wait, the slavers show up in Fallout
they just
2,
seem to be
not
the same
Fallout 1.
people again. So I'm just like,
Yeah.
it just
No, you're right.
so they
You're
just
right.
slotted right in. So when people started saying the cons, and then every time that the cons are described, they just sound like Caesar's Legion. I just conflated the two in my head, and honestly, I struggle to separate the two. The primary difference that I can come up with
Have you found
is just the fact that the
cons?
cons seem to be the equivalent of being the indigenous people. They're not really the indigenous people, because this is like 7 times
This is
over
America.
conquered America. So like there's
Yeah.
so far from root from being any kind of indigenous, but they were the people that were there first before the NCR, and so they're being displaced by the NCR, who are themselves being displaced by the Caesar's Legion.
Caesar's Legions.
So
But
there's
have you found the cons already?
I don't know. I don't think
Okay.
so.
You
I
haven't
found
found them yet.
Akon, and
Yeah, that's normal.
the
You found
con,
Akon?
I found
How's he doing?
I found the sniper con that's shooting at an NCR refugee camp, and
Yeah.
at that one, it's like confusingly, the quest is written like you're supposed to find a non-violent solution, and this is a misunderstanding, and actually the morals are more complicated than you think, and so on, and you're supposed to be thinking it's more
Whoa.
complicated than it really is. But then he just monologues at you about how they were the scourge of the wasteland and stuff like that, and they were so cool for how evil they were, and I'm like, why don't I just shoot this guy? And then I just shot this guy.
Oh,
And so it's
see,
like,
yeah, that's why.
like
I'm not gonna
and
spoil.
I'm such a sucker for those like fucking peaceful solutions, or this is actually a Star Trek Next Generation episode, and it's a misunderstanding, and you need to find the alternate solution and so on.
They
But
do
he's just
have
monologuing
goals.
about how evil he is at me, and I'm like, why am I putting in extra work for this guy? These people already send kill squads after me. Fuck them.
See,
I don't think you
Right?
got yourself off of
Like,
anything.
my
But go
I'm
ahead.
telling
Sorry.
you. No, and just like that's what I'm saying is like that's how I play games though. Is like why? Well,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like there's fucking nuance here. This guy is literally
The cons
insane.
are interesting
Like-
though. They have, later on you find them and they have an interesting story. I'm not gonna spoil anything.
They're bad at being interesting because they keep
People
attacking.
in the know. No, but I'm just
Like,
saying that if you mix them
Everyone
up,
in Fallout is interesting to tell someone else about, but not to interact with. So I'm going to wipe them out. Like they're really cool to talk about, but I don't want to be around them. I don't want to look at them. I don't want to hear them. They just need to go away.
It's the problem of you need to just sort of concede to the specific designs of the game sometimes and be like, okay, I'm going to restrain from shooting up everybody in this town so I can have an interesting quest line later on with the Legion, which is what I did the last time around. And there's a little bit more stuff, but generally the Legion is kind of forced to not attack you because they are such a huge part of the storyline that if you did just go all out in the Legion and then Caesar was like, okay, this motherfucker's gonna die right now, it would fuck up like 20% of the game. It would be Wasteland 3 levels of fucking up, honestly, and they just decided not to do that. Which I think is a good solution instead of doing what Wasteland 3 does, which is like, oh, you killed this robot? Oh, all of my cousins are gonna kill you, and their cousins' cousins. And yeah, it's just
the fact that I'm still torn up by the fact that even the people who are being terrorized with a robot are like, I can't believe you killed that robot. You're evil. I'm like, what? The first thing my introduction to that robot was him vaporizing one of your people, and I'm the bad guy for shooting back. Like, what? Wasteland 3 is baffling.
There's just oh yeah, well, I mean,
what an incredible game.
Like,
Animal Companion was so powerful.
It was so good, dude. Nothing was funnier than the moment of realizing it. Like having that like that immediate of like, oh man, I guess we lost this fight, we're dead. And then watching the animals fucking hard carry, and you're like,
the number of fights we got
these things are invincible.
Like we realized that even having level 1 animal companion and recruiting a chicken for each party member or something was more powerful than actually being good at combat. So in half of the fights, Andrew and I would instantly get one shot and then just watch our animal companions fight for us for the next like 10 minutes and then win the fight. And just watch the game play out. Wasteland 3 is
so
incredible.
Good, dude. It's such a good game.
Just backing up a little to a point I wanted to make about New Vegas and the nuance of storytelling. And like the nuance of not storytelling, but the nuance of the stories these games want to tell. Like there was one person. I'm immersed in the world of Fallout. I know all the lore. I mean, not the Bethesda lore because that's fan fiction. But I know I know all the things. And so I like there's assumptions in my head that never show up. So I know who the NCR are, what they stand, what the writers wanted to do it with them originally, what New Vegas wants to do with them, and all that. Like I'm playing the halfway through the game and rambling. So I played last time I played New Vegas. I did it on stream, so people were engaging live, and I was just rambling about whatever as I'm ought to do. And there's somebody that commented about, hey, did you know that the NCR is not supposed to be the good guys? The writers don't actually consider them the good guys. And I'm like, yeah. And then I went on a ramble about why that is, and in the world of how it is. And what I particularly find fascinating, besides all the nice nuance, is that the literal remnants of the United States government are not the criticism of the United States government. It's the NCR that is the criticism of the United States government. So they have like
Not Caesar's Legion.
No, the NCR is basically a criticism of the bipartisanship going on with the.
Isn't the Brotherhood of Steel the remnants of the U.S. government or something?
No. It's the Enclave.
It's the Enclave.
Okay.
Yeah, the Enclave.
Like one of those other ones is. That's funny. It's confusing to think of it that way, because like I think NCR. I only know this from outside of the game materials because I never met Tandy, but I think the Tandy from
she was right there. You could have clicked on it.
It's Fallout 1's fault.
I know it is. It's true.
I don't know where the fuck the NPCs are. Which characters are characters? For all I know, Tandy died in my attempt to save the prostitutes or whatever from this enslavement that was happening, or whatever the fuck happened in that storyline
as well. Yeah,
like I think she might have just died. I think I tried to talk to whoever was there when I saved them, and I don't think Tandy was one of them.
James.
So she just like a character I didn't know existed died before I met them, basically.
Yeah, that's what happens.
But I think in the canon, she like created the NCR. So which is confusing because like if there was any faction in New Vegas that I would think was a remnant of the United States government, it would be the NCR, both because they act like they are and because they're basically named that. But it's just,
and also like
it was just started by some people one day.
Yeah. The flaws of it's mostly, I think, because the flaws of the NCR are the satirical flaws that you'd put on a criticism of the United States government. And Fallout 2 doesn't do a very amazing job of doing that, but it is still there. The sort of detachment from the politics and the day-to-day life, it's still there if you look for it. And the corruption, specifically the corruption with the people who give you money, like in particular Fallout 2 is the farmers. And so the sort of buddy lobbying relationship with the government and stuff like that. So it is the theme of that. But New Vegas just goes all out in that sort of criticism. There's so many side quests related to the NCR to show consistently it's about how bad they are, or no. I mean, sometimes about how good they are, because there's good sides of the NCR, obviously, but even then, you might just be of the opinion that those good sides are not good and they're bad. So it's still, what I'm trying to say is the side quests of the NCR are all about allowing the player to be like, okay, I don't like these people or I like these people. Culminating, in my opinion, with that amazing line of "We're with the government, for fuck's sake." I don't remember. I remember who says it, but I don't remember exactly what he's talking about. But it's like, we're trustworthy. We're with the government, and he's the government of the NCR specifically is just a scientist. And it's an interesting quest as well, because it comes from a lot of sides. There's a lot of people with perspectives on the same thing. But what I'm trying to say is that the nuance that allows people to be like, play the game for the first time and be like, oh, it's the NCR. The Caesar's Legion is bad. The NCR is fighting them. So they're the cool guys. And people just take things on face value, which is normal if you're not engaging critically with the media you consume. But they look at the NCR and it's just like, okay, they're the good guys. They're going around. They look at that. They look like the United States Army. I've watched movies. I know exactly all the how that I'm supposed to think about this. But then you start like look at the nuances and think, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense.
I don't know how you could ever make it through the game and still think the NCR is just this uncomplicated good guy faction. Like, just because every single side quest is itself some kind of commentary. It always is somebody abusing power, or it's somebody who's incredibly incompetent in a position of power, or being trusted as an authority or something. like at the power plant where the guy is just making shit up as he goes along, or
Yeah, that guy drives
yeah.
me nuts.
It's very funny. Or how like their basic communication doesn't work with each other. None of their bases work. There's a ton of people that are basically just in like shame camps where they're supposed to just be ignored because they're not useful to the organization. There's a lot of betrayers. Basically every single time you do a quest that doesn't involve Caesar's Legion, somebody comes in as a third party, and it's always morally correct to side with that person over the NCR on the mission the NCR sent you on. Like that's like just a consistent fact. Like it's me like, oh yeah, this thing's basically evil and humanity. Like, oh yeah, we should delete this data. Like this happens over and over again.
Establishment or the love for the establishment is so deeply ingrained in people's brains that it does create literal blind spots in everybody that has a love for the establishment. So when games present a faction as the establishment, though that style of people, which is a lot of people, that style of people just defaults to these guys are good, or to just make up excuses for that. So I think when you say that you don't understand how people would say that, I think the only reason why people would think that they're uncomplicated or relatively uncomplicated is because of blind spots towards the establishment. And I don't think that's where I think New Vegas is not necessarily a political game, even though it is about politics, is because it's not interested in teaching people to look beyond their preconceived notions of who's right and who's wrong. And it presents criticisms of things in real life as wrong or right, but if you're a person who just likes it like that, if you know what I mean, you're gonna come out of the game thinking, the NCR is good, they're actually right, because it does happen though. It's like Mass Effect. I have a read on Mass Effect that the writers of the game did not want that read to exist, which is that the council is bad. I have, there's many points. It's not just one thing. One throwaway comment is, oh wait a minute, there's this thing where they specifically exclude entire, not just countries, but planets and planets of people based on their race from actually having political power. It's not that one aspect. It is that aspect as well, very much so. But the council in general is bad, and the game just thinks of it as good. And to the point where in Mass Effect 3, I'm having a lot of fun with Mass Effect 3, but mostly also rambling at it. But there's this one thing where it's like, it's always the same. The council is always the same and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I blew them up. They came back, motherfuckers. Just because the game is so married to the notion of keeping the establishment, or what, when I say establishment, what I'm saying is the state of things, keeping the state of things as they are and preserving the status quo. The Mass Effect is a game married to that. And there's a lot of games married to that. Of the restoring things to what they were. This big monster comes out from space and attacks this thing. Let's restore it. There's this whatever, the mass relay thing, the red mass relay. There's bad things back there. Let's prevent them from destroying the things that we are as they are. The main story of Mass Effect is about preventing change. Obviously, the change being mass extinction, but still, what I'm trying to say is, preserving the status quo is a really powerful thing, and sometimes you just have the wrong read on your story. In Mass Effect, I think has the wrong read on specifically the council.
Is Mass Effect 3 about preventing change when you spend the entire game resolving the conflicts that were set up over the entire trilogy?
I mean, isn't
I'm
the
talking
change
about
being like whether you assimilate
I know you're trying
the
to stop,
Reapers or not?
I know you're trying to not get genocided, but aside from that,
that's what I'm saying.
like every single chunk of Mass Effect 3 is about visiting the major locations that you've been built up over the last two games as being like the core conflicts and issues that have been set up, and then you have to permanently resolve them in catastrophic ways.
That is a good point. And it's the game. That's why I'm having fun, honestly, because those challenges are interesting, and the game keeps just having misunderstandings about specifically the Krogan, and the game just not acknowledging that it's genocide to basically make them not be able to have kids.
I don't think you can accuse them of not knowing it's a genocide when they literally call it a genophage.
They do, but the excuses, even the excuses made by Paragon, is always like, yeah, but it's kind of, maybe they're not bad, maybe we
I don't
shouldn't.
think Paragon's necessarily supposed to be a good guy. Paragon is just supposed to be the by the books guy.
The game just I'm not going with Paragon. I'm going with Renegade. Renegade is even worse.
You are inherently trapped in some variation of being a cop man, and
yes,
so
that's the thing. Paragon
affects
is cop.
his characterization no matter what.
Well, the Renegade is cop as well, but Paragon is the coppiest of cops. And like
one of them is propaganda, and the other one is Dirty Harry.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. But I just think, in particular, the genophage, the game does not acknowledge the basic reality. And it's very complicated, and there's a lot of nuance here and there. But the basic reality of the people who aren't born yet are a blank slate. You don't know what they're gonna do ever at all, ever. And if they're born in a country that is at war with you, yes, they are. There's that country is having bigger population, but the people are not at fault. I
think you can get a pretty clear read that is supported by the game of the idea that not only is this a genocide with it being called a genophage and everything, but it was literally a group. They were their own separate indigenous people that were specifically exploited by other people because it would benefit them in a war. And then you see like the ruins of their society, and you visit that, and there's just this understanding that like they built this society. These aren't somebody else's ruins. These are the Krogan ruins that you're walking through. Just when you meet their faction, you're just walking across rubble of stuff that like they clearly made and were destroyed because of the conflicts brought on directly because of their exploitation by the Solarians. It's like, I think it's very explicitly, obviously in the text that they like everything that they had, any progress they had is curbed by what was done to them from the outside. And so I don't think you can really read it as being like, oh, it's not bad, the Krogans deserve this or something, or we're neutral on this. Like, they're very obviously in the right. The Solarians are very obviously in the wrong.
I'm not saying that they're not in the. I'm not saying that the game thinks the genophage is bad or thinks the genophage is good. Like, what I'm saying is it thinks it for the wrong reasons. It's like it doesn't acknowledge the fundamentals of a plague that makes people infertile. It's only 1,000, 1 in 1,000 that isn't infertile or something like that. And that's on top of all the other like racially tinged or racism tinged things that they talk about the Krogans. Like, for example, the related to how many kids they have, and the way they talk about them having kids. To related to their brute strength as a reason to fear them, which is like, motherfuckers, you literally have planet destroying ships. What are you talking about? A Krogan can't do shit. He's gonna punch you? Well, it's gonna bigger muscle makes the weapon go more pew pew. Is that what it is? But it isn't. The game. It isn't though. The game is aware. Like, in a way, the game is kind of aware of this dissonance that I'm pointing out just now. And what it does is it's just consistent. Like, for example, there's this dialogue with Joker where they're talking about how the war sort of maneuvers of the Krogan, because the Krogan just you recruit the Krogan and it's like, oh, yeah, we're gonna fight the Reapers with the Krogan, and there's this completely banal conversation with, I don't know if it's with Edie or with the Joker, but it's one of the people in the cockpit, and they're talking about, okay, they're gonna need food, they're gonna need people they're gonna need ships, they're gonna need resources, a bunch of things, and it's played as if it's a bad thing to hire the Krogan because they're a bother. Look at all these things that we're gonna need to do for them, and I'm like, yes, that is how war works. You need supply lines, you need all this stuff. Yes, do you expect these people who have been subjugated for thousands of years to have all this stuff? They don't even have ships. They literally do not even have ships, and I think it's just the game just does not understand. It's not understand, but it doesn't. Is not willing to accept that it sees the Krogan in a racist perspective. Like it treats the Krogan with a different set of rules, specifically in regards to how strong they are physically. But there's other things as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't played it since before Andromeda came out.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, I am going out of my way. Well, it's not going out of my way, but I'm making a conscious effort to stay stuck to this sort of prism on the game, and so I'm looking out for stuff. I'm picking on things. I'm like, oh wait, what did you say there? What was that? And then sometimes it's really really minute things, like the sort of undertone of this conversation that we're having that is banal, but you're like, wait, why are we having this conversation? What is the point they're trying to make? And just sort of I'm picking up on this stuff and I'm criticizing it very, very aggressively. But I'm having fun doing it. But it's still all I'm trying to say is that nuance can happen without the author's intent. And like, this is not a call out on the authors of Mass Effect. It's like, I'm not an expert, so all I'm saying, I'm just some fool. Don't, if you disagree with me, it's totally fine. But what I'm trying to say is that, it's unless you're like interested in this sort of discussion about racism and ingrained prejudices and stuff like that, you're going to write stories that just reflect society as it is, and the Krogan, and especially when you're talking about interracial wars and racism, because Mass Effect does talk about racism, just does it in a very ham-fisted way because the writers didn't really care to learn about that, because you need years to learn about that.
Take that, Drew.
Damn.
Wasn't
Got
Drew
him.
Capsaicin?
I don't know who Drew is.
I think it was the writer of Mass Effect.
Oh, I don't know.
His name is not Pepper though, but
it's also like the work of so many people that sometimes, like for example, Ashley in Mass Effect 1, the racist person, like she conveys this sort of very ham-fisted anti-alien perspective where you're given a chance to agree with her in like with mittens and just like yeah, you kind of have a point there, or you can just call it, yeah, what I'm trying to say, like kid gloves. That's what I was trying to say. Because you either agree with Ashley and it's like, you kind of have a point, but we sort of need them a little. Let's not change the main storyline, okay? Or you just call her out on her shit and she just sort of changes a little. Eventually, Mass Effect 3, she's not even racist anymore. It's just like different. She has the best makeup. Well, like I tried to make my character have like normal. And then
I never know where these sentences are going.
Ashley shows up right at the start of the game with looking like she's freaking out of a L'Oreal or whatever advert, and I'm just like, motherfucker, why does she have the best makeup? But whatever. What I'm trying to say is
that's the
she's the
Cerberus.
racist.
No, she's not Cerberus. Never mind.
No,
yeah,
she's
and
the racist lady.
She wasn't racist anymore.
It is kind of a little like that, yeah. But I think like
Ashley,
it kind of plays as if
the racist, but not anymore. Dragon.
It kind of plays as if they wanted to have her in the game, but not address that thing that they talked about in the game. So it is literally, and suddenly she's not racist anymore. Like I
am mixed up on that a little bit, because I feel like Ashley is in that scene correctly predicting the plot of the Mass Effect trilogy, and is sometimes, I don't remember if there's other context to it that drives it harder, but I feel like she's being less racist and more just realistic about what it's like to be the new, essentially like the new nation in this intergalactic like civilization, and how the moment things go bad they will look out for their own instead of your civilization, which is what happens. Like she's just in that conversation she describes the plot of Mass Effect 3.
But the reason why that it works is, for one, because the game is not aware of its own inbuilt racism, and so it falls on the same traps. So when the racist says, hey, this is going to happen, the game ends up actually making that happen, because it's the worldview of the people who wrote the game. Not calling them racist or anything. It's just sort of like ingrained in the thing. Because what you're saying is, people looking out for their own race only happens because the council as an institution is racist, and it maintains that racism, and it doesn't give power to the people. And when it does, it's based on their race. It's just obviously in a racist system like the council.
Yeah, the civilization is organized in a way
that's
that
what
keeps
happens.
each individual intergalactic civilization, or whatever to write terms for the stuff is. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm getting that intergalactic civilization is somehow both those words were wrong, but whatever. Each faction is kept as its own separate faction, even both inside and outside of the council, based on how their overall everything is organized. It's why I feel like people are a little too hard on Ashley, because I'm like, she's just having a correct read on the setting that she's in. She's just correct in that conversation.
She is, but like the point of her character is to be the racist, though.
Yeah, but also people.
But how is she being racist? She doesn't show up anywhere. She's like, ew, gross, Krogan.
I'm just noticing that every single player individually calls her out as being the racist, but then does not have any usually does not have any larger response to the game she's in where everything she said was right.
You're right. But what I'm like, couple that with what happens with specifically the other guy, I forget his name, the honcho man from also Companion.
James? Is that even a character's name?
James is from
James.
Mass Effect.
James
is Mass Effect 3. In Mass Effect 1, there's is it Hayden? It is Hayden. Yeah, it is Hayden.
Caden.
Right? Or is it Caden? That's the one. He died. I killed him. Or whatever. Yeah, of course I'm gonna save Rex. Or whoever.
That's not the choice. It's Caden or Ashley.
Caden or Ashley.
Rex is literally just a skill check.
Skill check, there it is.
If you're not charming enough, you lose the best character.
Damn.
Yeah, that's true.
Just like real life.
At least I killed Morden on purpose, so that was great.
Why? What is
Morden is the space Nazi. He's literally the person who created the Genophage.
But he sings a funny stage play song. How bad could he be?
No, it makes it.
He sang "Springtime for Hitler."
Thinking Nazis is worse. But no, just sorry, not to distract myself too much. Couple that what you're saying about
already.
Ashley. That's true, yeah. But couple that what you're saying about Ashley with Caden. And Caden has this dialogue. I think I've talked about it in the podcast before, but he has this specific dialogue where it's a kind of a throwaway dialogue where he talks about having the experience of accidentally killing a Turian in the academy, because whatever academy he went to. So apparently this Turian was just being a dickhead, according to him, and he punched him, and by punching him, he killed him somehow. It's explained in the storyline. But he specifically says, Caden says, I didn't kill him because he was a Turian. Or I didn't attack him because he was a Turian. I attacked him because he was being a dickhead. And the game shows a complete lack of awareness that sort of argument it's not actually an excuse for that argument doesn't work for excusing racism. Because it's like, if you are predisposed to seeing Turians as dickheads, or if you're racist against Turians, then yeah, you're going to think of him as a dickhead a lot faster than a human, and you're going to punch him. You're not going to punch him because he's a Turian. You're going to punch him because he's a dickhead, but it's still a racist reaction. And the game shows no self-awareness in that. And it's like one of the classic, so easy to tell things that racialized people suffer from is being
the biases that would lead to those kinds of reactions. Yeah, and the people who do those reactions are not even aware, and they say, "Oh no, I have a black friend. I hate black people."
I don't know, man. Taurans were responsible for the fucking bad part of 1, and they were specifically the ones telling me that it couldn't be them because that guy's a good guy. Maybe they're not the best judge of characters or people. Maybe
this is an example of Andrew being racist. Saren being single-handedly the fault of the Turians, apparently.
But he represents all Turians throughout the entire galaxy. Every time you meet one, you're like, hey, wait a second, that guy reminds me of him.
Look at him go.
But that's good racism, though. That is the easy racism that is easy to point out. But Mass Effect tries to make it nuanced.
Crash the movie racism.
Yeah, Mass Effect
just incredibly obvious racism.
It tries to make it nuanced and fails at it, and shows that they don't actually understand racism, because Ashley was correct.
It's part of why it's interesting to have, like, even bad art is interesting in its own way, because like
yeah.
Even if even if Mass Effect and New Vegas are genuinely completely oblivious to what they're doing in some of these contexts, they still illustrate it so accurately that it has value.
Oh, 100%. And again, I'm not calling Mass Effect out. I think it's an amazing trilogy. I'm having
I really
lots of
like the
fun
Mass Effect
with
trilogy, even though it can't ruin
From a game-
itself for me by being a trilogy where you play as cops and the hottest guy is also a super cop.
See, if that is your threshold, or it's not even in your threshold, then nothing else can be. Well, maybe other things can. My point is, I'm having a lot of fun from gameplay style, from gameplay wise. It has its downsides, I think, specifically in regards to space exploration. But and also the cover system is the worst thing that I hate it. You can't sprint anywhere because you're just always getting stuck in everything. So it's just like slow, and I don't use cover because I hate it. But still, the storytelling is great, and I wish BioWare kept doing games like that instead of whatever that other game that they made last. What was it called? Waterfall?
Don't chase those.
Space Jet Simulator. What was it called? I never played it.
Anthem?
Do you know the one? Anthem. That's where did I get Waterfall from?
Waterfall.
It has waterfalls in it.
Waterfall.
I mean, it does. Yeah, it does have waterfalls in it. You're not wrong.
Probably.
Yeah,
I mean, I can confirm it does. I can confirm it does. I'm just saying that's not what you see most of the game. I would probably say like Mech Game or maybe Space Iron Man, but like I would not say waterfalls to describe Anthem.
I never played it, so my
no one
my
did.
perception of the game. Yeah,
I just said I did. Why are you ignoring me?
Why would you play Anthem?
I beat Anthem.
You don't even like regular BioWare games. Why would you play the obviously bad one?
I had a friend who wanted to play it.
Ew,
he had no one to play it with.
friends.
So I decided I would. Yeah, gross.
Oh,
right?
oh man, Andrew, I got no friends to play Fallout 76 with.
I already played Fallout 76 with Mandy.
What
I
the
can play
fuck? Stop!
I can play Fallout 76.
Nice try, asshole.
So that's the line. You'll play horrible games for your friends, but you won't play them. But you won't play them again.
But I do think BioWare will never make another good game ever again, as long as they're.
Oh, Jesus!
I mean, the signs are not good. They've had two horrible games in a row, and I don't really care about the company split between the two developers or whatever, because
it's not a company split.
They're still being controlled by the same publisher that's going to make them make these horrible choices.
But it isn't a company split. It's just a trademark thing. It's just another studio that they made, and they happened to call it BioWare something. It's nothing.
I don't mean.
I'm
not
just saying,
like,
I don't.
Super negative.
I'm just saying that I still see Andromeda as a bad sign for BioWare, even if it technically wasn't BioWare or whatever the fuck happened by the end.
No, I see.
Like, I'm still like, this is the incentive structures, and this is the poor management and decisions that are made here.
Yeah, it's Electronic Arts. It happens to every studio. And it's just the nature of a big corporation trying to make money. They murder a franchise by making a Mass Effect Andromeda or a Dragon Age or a Dead Space 3, and then 10 years later they're like, "Oh, return to the roots of the legendary franchise we always loved and didn't think needed to be butchered to be saved financially. Here's an amazing remaster of the first game because we love it so much and respect its legacy, so much so that we sank the franchise by meddling with it in both cases and every other case." Yep.
I can't wait for when EA is like, check out our amazing remaster of Skate, our favorite franchise ever. We didn't tank at all. I think they did Skate.
I'm not gonna say that BioWare will, or that Bethesda will never release a good game again. I will say they will never release a good game so long as Todd is still running the damn thing.
You're thinking Bethesda or BioWare? Because those are different companies.
Bethesda. BioWare is the same difference, though.
No one talked about Bethesda, you fool. You absolute nutter. You madman.
But still, it's the same criticism.
I was thinking of Fallout.
The system that drives their game design is flawed in the sense that it's not meant to be to make interesting games. It's meant to sell. And like when you think of the original Dead Space, whoever came up with that idea, maybe they had a demo where, oh, this play style is really cool. Grotesque monsters in space. And they like the
Car crash victims in space. I got really quiet. Did the call drop?
anything like
Discord
this.
just
Oh. Oh.
did Discord just die? I
Okay.
think Discord just had like a yep.
Yeah,
there
I
it
know.
is.
I was like, damn, no one liked my joke.
Oh, I was rambling
Yeah.
about I
Yeah,
didn't
they're
know
just
joke,
gone.
actually.
No, I was just
Sorry.
like,
It just like
you talked about grotesque monsters in space and then stopped talking. So I was like, car crash victims in
Yeah.
space.
I mean, what
and
I'm
then
saying
it was
what
just
I'm saying
silent
is
for 10 seconds.
yeah. I was just saying that they're really excited. Like when you make a game like that, you're really excited to have people look at a new thing. It's not, it's not trying to cash in on a brand that already exists. It's not trying to remake a thing that people already love and just want to see more, or a sequel or a prequel or whatever else motherfucker goes on these days with all the multiverse shit. It's just a new thing. The multiverse is like cancer to this sort of new thing perspective, because there's nothing new. It's always going to connect to some other stuff, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And Bethesda is just they're a little bit better. They're quite a lot better than Electronic Arts, honestly. But they're just like, all they want is just to sell, to the point where they're going to make Skyrim in space, or sorry, Fallout 4 in space, and people are excited for it. And they called it Starfield. That's why. If they called it Fallout 4 in space, they wouldn't be excited.
I think they'd be kind of excited, but yeah.
yeah,
I
they
mean,
may be
that's
excited.
true. Actually,
I
mean,
true.
Consumers are
ultimately,
pretty easy to please.
I mean, it is interesting that they're actually. I don't know if Starfield is itself an existing IP from something else or whatever, but it's interesting to just for once see one of these companies, especially the RPG making companies, start a new name, because they've been like across the board, any AAA RPG developer has been just refusing to make anything that's new for like the last decade, except like technically Cyberpunk.
Well, Obsidian, not Obsidian though.
Obsidian is not a AAA developer on any level.
Okay, well, fair. That's
Not
fair.
really, at least. But yeah, and even then, Outer Worlds was entirely advertised as being Fallout New Vegas in space. So speaking of the thing that you said no one would be excited about, that was the entire pitch for Outer Worlds.
And I played that before I played.
You've been
Fallout New
defeated in
Vegas.
the marketplace of logic and reasoning.
Or I guess before I beat. New Vegas.
Well, and Pillars of Eternity.
I expect my check in
Pillars
the
of
mail.
Eternity. Pillars of Eternity is just Baldur's Gate 3, so there's that. I defeat myself.
Wow, everyone is
as well.
It's so uncreative. I cannot believe this.
Yeah, because that's the struggle, is like every single AAA pitch for an RPG, because RPGs are so high risk because they're just a lot of work. Every AAA RPG is just a sequel to an existing franchise. So if you're somebody who made RPGs back in the Xbox, like original Xbox era, then you're stuck with those franchises you made back then forever, and you only make sequels to those franchises now, and you're not allowed to ever start a new IP for the most part. And if you're a more indie RPG developer, that means you have to kickstart all of your RPGs. So they all have to be promised to being like most Kickstarter projects, they have to be promised to be spiritual successors to a thing people already like and feel underserved about. So it's always like, here's Psychonauts 2, here's our take on Baldur's Gate 3, here's our take on Fallout in space. And then that other company is like, here's our we're gonna make Shadowrun and stuff like that. It has to be like, it's all follow up on specific nostalgic vectors. It's never like, here's my brand new idea that's completely untested, support it so new things can happen. That is not how Kickstarter works either.
That sounds scary. Why would you do that?
But Tides of Numenera is kind of a little like that, because it's a new rule set. Tides of Numenera.
What did you just say to me?
It's a new rule set because of the Monte Cristo tabletop games. Like it doesn't use D&D at all. It's a completely different system. It's
should I tell on Toaster?
Yeah,
yes.
go
You
for
wrapped it back around to Tides of Numenera, and I'm like, ha ha ha. I've had his DMs open about Tides of Numenera ever since it first got brought up, and then we fucking went off into space on topics, and I was like, oh, well,
Oh.
no, I can't talk about this.
Sorry,
But
you can't know.
because I talked about how like you guys have diverging opinions on this, so I like a month ago I was like, I still gotta do the Fortress of Regret, I think, and then I'll be done with Planescape Torment. And he's like, I don't remember how long the fortress is. I remember it being pretty short. But basically, the last third of that game just blends together in my head. I played Torment as part of this genuinely insane franchise run where I played almost every major Infinity Engine and Infinity Engine inspired CRPG in a row. I burnt out after Torment Tides of Numenera because it sucked so hard. And so I responded, lol, opinions are so divided here. And he said it might have gotten slightly better than when I first played it because at release it was as a disastrous mess. But its systems blow ass and its writing isn't good. It's also not even remotely a good representation of the tabletop system it uses. Skill checks are completely randomized. Most of them can be redone on the spot, so you can just click until you get past things. It also has, without a doubt, the single worst boss encounter I've ever played in a video game. So I said, time for you and Colonel to battle it out in the next podcast, which obviously didn't happen. He said, it will be a boring conversation because it will be mostly just me saying Torment Tides is a half-finished game that doesn't even use the Cypher system well and has a bunch of half-baked mechanics that and was also not really finished by the time development ended. And him probably saying, yeah, but it's good.
Yes. I think so. Well, I think in regards to the writing, that might be the biggest or maybe the only point of contention. I do remember one particular boss fight was pain and crashed, and I didn't enjoy it very much. But I thought the writing was consistently great, in the sense that it was utilitarian enough that it wasn't just, oh, I'm seeing this writer like putting out words and justifying their paycheck, and some like sometimes it wasn't that, but for the most part,
I'm fine.
for the most part, it was utilitarian enough where basically it kept things moving forward, even though we were just stuck in an hour and a half dialogue with the same character, and you were just hearing about these new things, and it was interesting. Rin in particular was tremendous. I loved her, and she had a very straightforward storyline, and she sticks to my mind. But there's even bosses that have very flowery speeches. Like this one boss, I forget his name now, but there's this one boss where he's just sort of like is addled and just sort of confused about things, and he's so much. And at first I was like, my initial reaction was like, oh, this is kind of boring because it's just saying like I get this guy already. I understand who he is. So a 30-minute dialogue of sort of mixed exposition, mixed playing the madman sort of trope is going to get old very fast. But I think in that particular instance, and it might not have been the only time, because I was actually saying things out loud, I started to see where the writer was coming from for that guy, and he just sounded like a heavy metal lyrics to me. He wasn't rhyming or anything. It wasn't like he was just saying things, but it was just such a metal character in terms of like his perspective and just sort of attitude. I was like, man, this guy is really great. And I ended up, it is like a half an hour dialogue before a boss fight. You can skip the boss fight. The non. Well, that game is
the
just
boss fight after a half an hour dialogue. What?
Yeah. That game is just
Oh my
dialogue throughout. It's more of a visual novel than anything. But what I'm trying to say is because I was saying his lines out loud, I understood. After like maybe 3 minutes, I understood that his character was just sort of like an exercise in just sort of flow of a very sort of straightforward trope. And in particular, that was like, wait a minute, my original predisposition for this character was completely wrong, or at least from my perspective. And so, yeah, maybe it is because I just say everything out loud, and it's just engage with the dialogue different. But I remember enjoying the dialogue a lot, and in those games, the biggest fear is that it's just flowery for the sake of flowery, the writing, because you advertise the game as having 700,000 lines or however much it was, because it was something to that extent. and it took me 100. Actually, I should look it up, but
Her
to my mind,
sapphire orbs glimmered in the dying sun.
What?
Just flower
that
language.
sort of yeah, it's the purple prose sort of thing. The game took me 124 episodes of half an hour each, more or less, to finish, and this was on release, so I haven't gotten back to it since. So we're talking like 80% of the time is just reading dialogue, and that would be 60 is around 50 hours of reading dialogue, which is a lot, right? But maybe I was wrong. Maybe the writing is not good. Maybe I just liked it and it wasn't good. Well, it is possible. Like you can enjoy not good writing, but I do think that there's some standout characters.
And I have nothing to add because I was
Yep.
quoting somebody.
Yep.
I
don't
know-
know what that game
I
is
like
at
the
all.
room that's entirely basalt columns. The only thing I know about Tides of Numenera. It's the only thing I know about a lot of games.
It is the kind of game that if you don't like it, you're not gonna like it, because it doesn't offer anything else apart from its writing. I mean, it does a little, but it says, as the Toaster is saying, with the cipher system and the implementation of the tabletop, it's so simplified. It's very, very simple, very straightforward, and the character system is barely existent. Which for me, all of that is a plus. Honestly, I don't need any of that. It's fine. Just might as well not even have character level ups or anything. Which it doesn't have level ups. That's right. That's just like a huge bonus to me, honestly. When an RPG doesn't have level ups, this is like, I mean, come on, how can you not love that RPG? And it doesn't, as far as I remember. The way it works is you get like charms or items.
This
It's
is how
basically an
we
inventory
relitigate and go back to war with the audience about the definition of RPGs.
The audience doesn't know. They think it has to have combat.
I mean,
They're immediately
they're
wrong.
constantly, yeah. Their definition of RPG is basically it's basically the fact that you level up, and it's like they'll call things RPGs where you can never make any kind of role playing whatsoever, or even the slightest choice, but your dexterity goes up, so it's an RPG, and I'm like, I hate this.
If you're
Save me.
if you're not critical of the definition, then they are correct. That's how RPGs are for computer games. But that's because computers didn't try to make the role playing; they tried to make the character system, and you ended up with things like, what's the first? It's a Calabeth, I think, which is just like a Calabeth. I think it's the first RPG, which is just like a read your own adventure style combat system, dungeon crawler thing, where you get very basic one-liners or things like that, just saying, "Hey, here's where you are. This is the monster or whatever." And then you go through a dungeon and kill monsters. Because games couldn't have more complicated things than that. Obviously, it's a very complicated discussion. Because, what do words mean? Is it their origin? Is what most people think they mean? Is it actually the root of the word? Because if it's like, are we going back to the discussion about silent quitting? You're not actually quitting. It's called silent quitting. It's like, you know what I mean?
The RPG discussion was the original sin for our semantic arguments we have every episode.
Yeah, it's the sort of, I mean,
except
I'm
it's
sure
the one
I'm
where we
not-
agree. So it's us arguing with
Yeah,
the
that's true.
audience.
I'm sure I'm not the only person, but it's the conversation that I've been having on the internet since I started having conversations on the internet. Is people going like, "Oh, Final Fantasy is a very good RPG," and I'm like, "Oh, I've never seen any." Wait a minute. You don't actually. It's just cutscene. It's an adventure game. What are you talking about? It's a tactical game. That's not an RPG. But
Doesn't have any
obviously-
role playing in it. You just run forward and da 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 da. Now watch the
And,
story happen at you.
like for me, I never even, like, growing up, I didn't consider Diablo to be an RPG, even though like it is in the sense of the genre. It's an action RPG, but it's like, and the same way that Final Fantasy in an RPG is a JRPG or a tactical RPG. Like, but I just like I think my first RPG was Baldur's Gate 2, and like I saw my cousin play it, and it's just so much time spent in dialogue and the options, and I'm like, oh, this is what this kind of game is for. And then these days we have visual novels, and no, actually visual novels are, the sort of more dialogue choice heavy visual novels, and it's just like that's what I saw the first time when I saw RPGs.
Yeah, the
Even though
line
Baldur's Gate is
blurs
about-
between RPG in different directions, visual novels or immersive sims.
Yeah.
It's actually relatively rare to find an immersive sim that doesn't feel like it counts as an RPG, especially more than JRPGs do.
Well, they were invented to be the next level of RPGs. They admitted, I mean, not in those words specifically, because they were sort of like the Deus Ex was the thinking man's Doom. I think it was advertised as. So it wasn't
The
actually
thinking
competing.
man's doom.
Yeah, I think it was the trope. I wasn't around, but I've seen
What the
stuff like
fuck?
it was the thing. Like if you just you're some kid, you play Doom, but if you're like actually, if you're the smart one, you play Deus Ex, because it's still a shooter, but it's like, oh, you got all this stuff going on, which is, I mean, I like Doom, but I can see where they're coming from with that. But what they ended up making is because of just the inherent design of allowing player choice, they ended up making the next level, or trying to anyway, the next level of role playing, which is I think it's a dead end though, unless AI evolves so much where we can finally have proper choices like a tabletop. And even then, it's just going to be, because it needs to be a simple game. It can't be like, by definition, an immersive sim has to have immersive graphics. So we're never going to get there, I don't think.
Damn.
I don't think that's really the point.
I don't think that's the point either. I mean,
That's not where the
otherwise we're
word-
kind of.
it's not
I
where
mean,
the-
we're almost there anyways with VR. Like,
It's not where the word comes from the immersive sim, but the genre is about just making you think you're in another world, and graphics are a very important aspect. Deus Ex had tremendous graphics for the time.
I think stuff
And-
reacting in a believable way is more important than it looking believable. So like Gloomwood could be an immersive sim just fine if they pull it off without it being like comically polygonal.
Gloomwood. Well, it would in the sense, like in an academical sense, but I don't think. I
think
it
immersive
is.
sims about mechanical expression more so than being like, wow, it's the game is indistinguishable from reality. Look at all the polygons.
You're right in saying the gameplay is very important. It is, specifically the being able to flush the toilets. I think as long as you can flush a toilet, it's an immersive sim.
Isn't that fucking nightmare, eye bleeding, horrible assassin game that looks like a deep fried meme? Isn't that an immersive sim?
I don't know
Fried
which one you're
meat. I
talking
don't
about.
think I know what game that is.
It was very big like 2 months ago. It was like an indie game that's just hurts to look at. Every second of gameplay is miserable to look at, and it was like the most popular indie game for like a month, and I think it was like an immersive sim about assassinating people or something.
That sounds unfortunate.
People, everyone in the audience will be yelling it, but how the fuck would I look this up?
But like, is Hitman an immersive sim?
Yes.
I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I don't think it is.
You are
Yeah.
literally pretending to be an assassin.
I think the
like
Hitman.
everything in the
But-
game
But
is
you're looking at
everything in the
word.
Okay, his argument's bad. Don't let his bad argument weaken my point. But immersive sims, yeah, all of the Hitmans that succeed at the Hitman formula and are doing what Hitman's supposed to be, I think also fit the entire premise of what an immersive sim is supposed to be.
They fit, but it doesn't mean that that's what they are going for.
They might have not
What?
known what an
They
immersive
weren't-
sim was, or not been thinking about that, or maybe, but that's
Yeah.
definitely what they made.
But that's
Sometimes you
like more
reinvent
of
the
a
wheel on accident, I guess. Like, I'm gonna have a game that's entirely my book, but with visuals, and like, there's a thing for that already, right? What?
Yeah, that's
Like,
true. That's true.
I quote unquote invented Let's Plays, and that I didn't know they existed, and suggested the idea to Andrew, but they're still Let's Plays.
Yeah.
And I invented
Keith
Bethesda
invented Let's
buying
Plays.
Fallout. So
I
that
did
was
invent
that.
Let's Plays in my mind, and that I had the idea on my own. But the idea is the revolutionary concept of what if you recorded someone playing a video game?
Are you
I
sure you
observed
didn't
a
watch?
concept being funny. What if it was a video?
Are you sure you didn't watch anybody play Penumbra? No, not Penumbra. What was the one?
No. What happened is
Okay.
Andrew left a review for Amnesia: The Dark Descent about how it gave him
Amnesia.
nightmares and everything. I'm like, and I just thought about like it'd be a funny video, just like if it had a video of
Wow, that's
Andrew
nice.
playing Amnesia. That'd be funny.
You came up with that before seeing the video. That's nice.
Yeah, I've
'Cause
never heard.
that
Of,
was
I
my
never heard
first-
of PewDiePie. I didn't know what Amnesia was. I still haven't played Amnesia: The Dark Descent.
It's
'Cause
nice,
we never
anything.
actually ended up making that particular video.
Mhm.
But it was the
I did try recording it and it didn't work out
it
very
was the
well.
premise that made us think about doing Let's Plays.
Because I remember that's my first interaction with Let's Plays was seeing videos about people being scared about Amnesia: The Dark Descent.
Yeah,
And then a year later, I was watching StarCraft, which I think
I just
were recorded
spontaneously
before
had the
Amnesia.
same idea because it's just a very intuitive idea.
Yeah. I say StarCraft, but I think it might have been Minecraft. Different kind of craft.
A lot of crafting.
Minecraft. The I lost my train of thought.
Oh, we were
Yeah.
talking about immersive sims and how they represent, how they stand in the niche of
They're
RPGs.
all of the best video games, and they're never financially successful.
they're
and
not.
Basically, go fuck themselves.
Sometimes they're bad. And honestly,
They're
I think the
cooler than
only good-
anything else. If you try to make an
That's
immersive
true.
sim, you're already cooler than the rest of video games.
That's true, but it doesn't mean that it's gonna be better.
No. Dark
Like a
Messiah of
backwards
Might and
flight
Magic's a bad video game. Boom. Let's fight over it.
I like it. I mean, it's very. There's a lot of yikes, but I like it.
That I was so disappointed when that game turned out to basically just be like, as far as I could tell, was like, and maybe there's just way more interesting expressions that I never found or whatever, but like, it definitely just felt like when I saw all the promise of like Bulletstorm and how it's supposed to be so cool and quirky and crazy, and then like 80% of its supposed inventive kills are you just kicking people into spike walls over and over again.
That's nice. I mean, I like that.
Like those are both games about kicking people into
Only
spike
finished.
walls, and they claim to be about incredible mechanical freedom. And I'm like, wait, I didn't see cool options. You just fight people normally, or you not kick them into spike walls in both games.
Yeah, but you're being
Both-
too critical.
Why-
Though. Those are
Yeah,
good
but why wouldn't you
tools.
kick them into
Yeah.
spike walls?
Exactly.
It's
It's
just-
like it's right there in the
it-
name, kicking them into spike
That's
walls.
not the name of either of those games. It's not Dark Messiah of kicking them into spike walls.
That would be a really good subtitle. I'd probably buy that game.
I know you would, but you also bought Anthem, so you're I can't trust you inherently.
That's true. That's true.
And now Anthem would cost
Understandable.
€70 or $70 base game.
I
It's
definitely
EA.
did not pay even close to that. I got it for free
probably-
from
yeah, it was
PlayStation
good.
Plus. So
Ah.
I did not. I would not have bought that game.
Anthem cannot be trusted.
But I think
I-
the only
but
good
it's- yeah.
immersive sim, including Deus Ex,
Damn.
is Prey. Prey is the only good immersive sim.
Is Pathologic 2 an immersive sim?
No.
What?
You
It's
can't
not?
pet the rats. You cannot pet the rats.
What the fuck is that metric? What does that mean?
You can't.
What are you
You
talking
can't pet
about?
the rats and fucking pray.
You can pet the rats in Deus Ex.
Are you the
in
fucking
Dialog.
moderator?
You can't pet,
Do
but
you
you
run the-
cannot pet them in Prey.
Are you the one
game
reading
you
the-
specifically said is your favorite immersive sim?
Damn.
But you can do other things. You can do other things.
Yeah,
in
you can
Prey.
find rats
But
and
you
put them
cannot
into
pet the rats.
bio-organic cuber.
Yeah,
and
you can turn them into
a-
little cubes.
You can turn
I
them into
love
a
the
rat
little-
cube
Not
and then
petting.
use that to make a rat.
Oh, that's the best
Power.
part. That's the most immersive
What?
simness of the whole game. Is the
I'm not
being
trying to make a
little cube.
ratatouille. I'm just trying
The
to pet
fucking
the rats.
the matter cuber.
Oh, it's the best thing. I love it so much. It's
Did
so
you say
good.
the matter cuber?
Yeah,
just-
it's a thing you
Just
put
talking about the you
items
played
in.
Prey, didn't you, Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just talking about the thing where you grab all these different. They made Fallout 4 but good, where because
great.
Fallout 4 tried to take the part where you run around in BioShock and Fallout games, and just scourge you just grab everything you see everywhere, and so much of it is pointless, but you can try to sell it or something, but it's like, oh, I got a fork, whoa. And Fallout 4 was like, yes, that'll turn into mattresses, and that'll turn into this other bullshit at the stupid base building thing that was like undercooked and not interesting mechanically on any real level after the first 5 minutes of you being like, oh, this is kind of cool, you can build stuff. I remember it being like,
cubes.
in particular, the high demand thing was adhesive. You'd always want to try to find something that would turn into adhesive in Fallout 4 and count for that. And yeah, in Prey, everything in the game that you can pick up, including enemies, can be turned into specific types of matter at those matter recycler things. Yeah. And can then be reclaimed to be turned into like crafting materials or skill points and stuff like that. And that was just fun. In particular, because then they had the recycling grenade where you could throw a grenade at enemies and turn them into upgrade points. It was just,
they made a
yay.
I used that. Yeah, I did use that a lot. I remember getting a whole bunch of people together in one thing and throwing it and being disappointed. There's like a limit to how many like NPCs it will grab.
Omnipowerful.
I was like, damn, what the fuck? This sucks, dude. I don't want this. I want to get I want to turn the entire like space station into a resource. Like,
yeah.
This is my cube room. It's where I keep the cubes.
Yeah, but also it's really funny to watch them just sit on the ground. You're like, I can't use all these. I have too many cubes. Like,
too many cubes.
One of the things that I love about Prey is that it could be better. It's not the perfect game. It could have a better storyline. It could have more interesting combat encounters. You could have a bigger world or more choice. Well, like there's so many things that it could improve, but it doesn't need to. It's already so good.
Prey has a lot of room for improvement.
If they make it does. But if they make Prey 2, they have a tall order, and especially considering what they're doing right now and the way they're doing it, I mean,
someone else tried to make Prey 2 and it didn't go very well for them.
I think at this point they can make Prey 2 and it would probably be like a godsend compared to everything else they've released prior. Like it's been Prey and then down. So if they came out with Prey 2, it'd be back up and then all the way back down.
Seems like one of the worst things you can do to your company is try to make Prey 2. Has a very low survival rate.
Why would you say that? Now they're not going to make Prey 2. Is this what you wanted? Do you want a world without Prey 2?
I'm talking about the fact that they already tried to make a sequel to Prey 2006, and
that's not real Prey.
When it was the original Prey, and then when it was almost done, it got fucking just destroyed. Like it was basically a finished game from what I hear, or very, very close, and it just got disintegrated, and all those people had to go fuck themselves basically. And then this other game is now called Prey. That's why I made the joke like last week. I'm like, oh, they should make a sequel to Prey 10 years from now, and they should just call it Prey. Just do it again.
No,
just make a third game that's also just called Prey again.
They call it a different thing. Because Prey in 2017
is a racing game this time.
Yeah, Prey is a sequel to System Shock, and it's just called Prey because of whatever legal matters. But the next sequel to System Shock can be called anything. It could be Fallout 6. It doesn't matter. It's fine.
It's just the mind virus that is System Shock just spreads from game to game.
System Shock is so influential, honestly.
I want them to make a Fallout New Vegas 2.
People definitely do look at System Shock when they're designing other immersive sims. I got to see it happen in real time because like the developer of Gloomwood was watching my System Shock 2 playthrough to get reacquainted with the game to inform his design of Gloomwood. Wow. So I have a really weird footnote in the development of Gloomwood where I just existed in it in a weird way.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's very funny to me that just to see that tweet, I'm like, that's surreal. That's just a weird experience.
Now you have to play Gloomwood.
I want to play Gloomwood. They should finish it sometime.
Nah, it takes forever.
I know game development.
And
it takes people 7 years to finish fucking furry visual novels. Imagine games with mechanics.
Well,
no, I don't want to. No mechanics, please.
So earlier we were talking about like reading into narratives and so on, and like the themes and what games say intended or unintended and so on. What I found interesting is I watched a movie recently where all I could think about afterwards was its messaging and what it potentially was saying in its existence. I watched Evil Dead Rise like 2 weeks ago, I think.
Cool.
So I'm hot off the presses,
thought you were
ready to discourse, and definitely haven't forgotten half of it already. But the
I thought you were about to make a joke.
no, I watched the movie Evil Dead Rise, and I so first of all, it's fun. It's what I would expect from an Evil Dead, but I only just know the reputation of Evil Dead 2, the original one. I've just seen Evil Dead 1 and the remake of Evil Dead 1. I've never seen Evil Dead 2 or Armory of Darkness yet. But you hear about why people like Evil Dead. And generally speaking, Evil Dead 1's remake, I think a lot of people do like, at least, I don't know, Stephanie and Toaster like it. And those are the people that I have to go off of half the time for this stuff. Fuck the general public. The Evil Dead, The Rise is interesting because instead of being a remake of Evil Dead 2, it's a sequel to the remake of the first one. So they remade the first one in their own style, and then they made a sequel to that instead of remaking Evil Dead 2, which is probably the right call, because you probably don't want to have to make a movie and just be compared to Evil Dead 2 the entire time, because that's the one that people specifically really like. But I found this movie, which was very fun and full of absurd scenes and like distressing. There's like both. It masters the tone of rapidly switching between being very stressful and distressing and just like off-putting, and then also just very darkly funny, which is basically the point. But it's also has like a weirdly conservative message, is what I came away from. Like very much like it seems to be against the idea of any kind of alternative family or alternative gender expression or alternative anything. And it's interesting because what I was hearing about this is that I was hearing people talk about this movie being very progressive and also basically a feminist film and so on. But I don't know if that's what the takeaway is. Because here, by my read, there are two types of horror stories thematically, for the most part. And I haven't spent hours thinking about this. So if there's other examples you can think of, that's fine, whatever. But like, generally speaking, when people die in a horror movie, one of two things is happening. One, you are expressing a genuine like danger or concern or a real life force that is happening to these people, and they're victims of it, and the way that they're a victim of it is emblematic of a real life problem. So it makes a lot of sense to have a horror movie where you have like some kind of marginalized group that is being attacked by a metaphorical force that matches up with reality in some way. And that's a way of having a horror movie that isn't specifically like judgmental towards the characters themselves. But another way, the classic way of doing a slasher film, for example, is this weird this like stuff that's been brought on by the history of filmmaking and how like the Hays Code worked and everything, and other elements like that, was that like the people who do and don't die were often a judgment of those characters, and in the most pure
like
form.
Saw,
Saw was the villain judging them, but you're not supposed to like the villain. And over the course of the series, it's like
Saw is
it's corrupted and so on.
Yeah, that's true. But the first ones were kind of written as in.
It's supposed to be about. Saw's supposed to be like people that don't like. It's supposed to be about people that aren't like valuing their life enough, but it quickly becomes apparent that Jigsaw's just a fucking psycho. Not just because of the death traps, but also like his reads of people is incredibly uncharitable, and just anyone, he's just so bitter that he's dying of cancer that anybody who he judges unworthy of how they're leading their lives is somehow deserving of a death trap. In a lot of the cases, it's just like a deeply fucked up read. And also the people who like there's also these fucked up puzzles where, like, if I remember correctly, like the lady who had to get the key out of her boyfriend or whatever, like that was like, it was supposed to be a judgment of her, the trap, but like the boyfriend's the one that suffers to that trap. So what the fuck, Jigsaw? But like, in slasher films, it's often like the formula would often be like it's like these teenagers or early 20-year-olds, and like the ones that do drugs or have sex and so on are the ones that die first, and the final girl is this pure person. And the direct inversion of this was Cabin in the Woods, where specifically the pothead survives to the end and all that stuff. Like, but like usually the when you're talking about these formulas, and this is stuff like Cabin in the Woods and Scream specifically will like talk about these formulas in the text, but like the final girl is supposed to be this pure, saintly, untouched character. That's the person who survives the wrath of the thing, and and there's also penchant for like any sexual minority or racial minority tends to die first, and then the people who have sex and the sluts die next, and you kill Paris Hilton in House of Wax, and so on and so forth. So a lot of times it comes across as the judgment of the people when they're being killed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found this movie interesting and strange because it's seen as progressive, and it does have a trans actor in it, and that's neat. But beyond that surface level thing, the read of what it's doing is distressing because it comes across as being against any kind of alternative family. So the introduction of the movie is that there's a woman who works as like an audio technician for a band or something, and she's doing a pregnancy test, and inherently like you don't even have to know the results. Like the moment you have pregnancy tests in movies, you know that they're positive because that's the point of the scene. So she's established as being pregnant, and she goes to visit her sister and her sister's family. And so we already have this like career woman that hasn't been visiting with her family very much for all these years and has been distant. And then she gets to her sister, and her sister's like the cool mom. Like, I don't know how best to put it, but like her and her daughters and so on are kind of generally like, you know, when they have like the trad wife meme, and then there's like the other girl with the black hair and everything that's supposed to be seen as the bad example to the weird conservatives that make those memes. Like their whole family is kind of that girl, including the mom. Like the mom has like dyed hair, and she has like tattoo equipment in the household and so on.
Nice.
So like she's supposed to be the cool alternative person, and like her trans son is a DJ and shit, and they're like there's like they're all living their shit. And specifically, I don't think she's a divorcee. I think her husband separated, like her husband took off. So it's like, oh god, there's not a man in the house. What's going on here?
Oh
no.
no.
So like, and this could all be seen as cool feminist stuff on some level, but the way that the actual horror plays out, I think illustrates the opposite opinion, essentially. Like I'm looking at the poster of the movie right now, and it says "Mommy loves you to death," and I'm like, and what happens in this movie is that, spoilers for Evil Dead Rise from here on out, and probably the rest of the podcast because we're pretty late anyway. But at the beginning of the movie, after it's established that the sisters have been distant, and the main character sister is pregnant, and the mom sister is separated from her husband and everything, and we meet the kids and everything. And I think it's supposed to be seen as bad that like she sends the kids out to get pizza, like one of them with the car keys, like, oh, you shouldn't be taking them out or something in the city or something. She goes out into the elevator and gets possessed.
There's men out there.
So she goes out into the elevator and she gets possessed in a horror like sort of hybrid like death possession scene, and so she becomes the antagonist for the entire movie, because that's what more or less happens in Evil Dead movies, is someone gets possessed. But it's specifically a mom like attacking and transforming her children. And I don't think I have to explain the subtext there that much, like especially in modern discourse about like trans trending, and like people that think that like every gender expression or alternative sexuality is parents indoctrinating their kids, because conservative ideology is that you can't come anywhere near my kids and you can't tell me how to parent, but also I can tell all the leftists how to parent because I know better, and they're all corrupting their kids. Is this whole bizarre approach to how the discourse works these days? And specifically her kids are there's a trans boy DJ, there's a kind of like let's say like tomboyish middle child girl. Like she has short hair, and she's like very like sardonic, sort of Daria-ish, and like a little standoffish and muted. And then there's the younger girl that is the generic little girl in every single horror movie. So she stands out a little bit because she doesn't have any kind of like alternative vibes to her. She just is a little girl in a little lacy dress or whatever, and she like plays with toys. Her main thing is just that they do all like fuck around and like play in the house and stuff. So like she's established as being a little weird, but she presents as traditionally feminine in a way that stands out compared to the other kids. And so how do I put this, in the possession scene where the mom gets possessed in the elevator, comes back in, and before anyone really knows what's up, or like the reveal that something's wrong, she grabs this basket full of eggs and just keeps throwing them all onto the skillet one by one, and just burns this giant nightmare skillet of eggs, of just every single egg. And she keeps going until she's completely out of eggs while chanting, and then it gets knocked on the floor and everything. So it's like, in a thing about children and pregnancy, like we've already introduced pregnancy because her sister's pregnant, and she has 3 kids herself. She's burning all of her eggs as the opening like villain thing of this movie, and then she attacks her own children. And at one point, the way that she converts one of the kids is that she stabs her with a tattoo gun. She specifically attacks somebody with a thing that is seen as like a thing that's inappropriate for someone to do to kids, is tattooing. And like,
Okay.
I think your read is interesting.
I'm just like, there's such specific metaphors here where it's like, your choice of imagery in a horror movie is always pregnant with meaning. Like, it always has like a context to it. Like, you can use anything. You could grab a fucking fire poker or a fire hydrant or a fire extinguisher or anything. Like, there's infinite ways to stab or bludgeon somebody. So when you choose really specific things, and it's like, okay, like, here's me burning all my eggs, here's me attacking my kid with a permanently altering tool that changes them for life, and so on. Although you can like remove tattoos in other ways, but like a tattoo gun specifically just feels oddly important when you're already in the context of all this headspace of like what they seem to be doing here. And what I found interesting is that by the end of the movie, the mom's already possessed. The 2 kids that are less traditional in their presentation are both possessed and killed, and the 3 of them join into an amalgam that is now hunting after and trying to convert the youngest daughter, that is the most like traditionally feminine character, basically. And then when the sister successfully defeats the amalgam by blending it in like a wood chipper thing, like a tree disposal thing, she then walks away with what seems to be this newfound thing where like since the movie started with her being busy with her career and having this inconvenient reveal that she's become pregnant, and then she's going to her sister for guidance, it feels like the implication at the beginning of the movie was that she's probably thinking about getting an abortion. But at the end of the movie, she very specifically is like not only walking away with a new adopted daughter that she's going to protect because the rest of her family's dead, but she's also going to like keep the baby, is the implication. And I'm like, like it feels like this movie is about the corrupting force of like liberal moms, and how it's like this, and it ends on like a pro-life message essentially. Like, it feels like that's the thematic meaning of the entire film, and I just don't know what to do with that, because it is a fun film and it was cool like in its actual like horror and everything, but I'm like, most horror is expressing something thematically if it's not just mindless and lazy, and this is too consistently full of imagery and themes that line up with each other that it doesn't feel like it's on accident. Yeah. Like, and one of the most, I forgot, one of the scenes that really stood out to me was that when it's near the end of the film, before they escape their apartment down to the parking complex where the final encounter happens, the possessed mom pounces on her sister and like sort of like makes her way down her body, and because she's talking about devouring her soul, but then she gets down to the belly of this newly pregnant mom, woman, and says 2 souls. So it's like specifically making a point to imply that the probably too early to to be viable fetus is already has a soul, and implying the specifics of like why it would be immoral to kill to get an abortion. And this is before this like despite that being the villain's words, she does then like wood chipper all of the corrupted parts of the family, rescue the daughter from her family, and then choose to keep that baby specifically. And yeah, like the fact that it specifically becomes a thing where like the main character essentially opens up an escape, and then the daughter gets snatched when they're about to escape. It very specifically sets up this imagery of the daughter being stuck in this space as the looming amalgam of her corrupted family is all coming towards her to then convert her, like this is like society or the thing or something. And it's like that specific imagery really screams like this character is this uncorrupted youth that you can still save while she's young from this family that's too far gone. And I'm like, this this feels on purpose. This movie feels like it's doing it on purpose.
You make it sound like it is, and I'm inclined to believe you. I just want to correct that it's not a fetus; it's an embryo.
Yeah,
fetus requires it's a lot later. I mean, if you're doing pregnancy tests, that is.
Oh, yeah, no, there's like 10 parts of this where I was like choking on exactly which terminology would be contextually correct while I'm trying to get the idea itself out.
Yeah, that's way too many.
Bad.
Like it makes totals. It makes this. It's too much to be just a coincidence. I think it sounds like they're just trying to tell the story of what you're saying.
Yeah,
man, I definitely don't. I definitely feel that I do not take movies even remotely that seriously.
Well, yeah, there's people every time I talk like about any movie like this, someone gets pissed. Like,
I'm not
just
mad
don't
about
think about stuff.
Yeah.
No, I know you're not mad. I'm just saying like people are like, shut up, stop thinking about the thing. Mario's supposed to be stupid. Mario's a dumb movie. Mario's bad movie on purpose. That's the point.
No,
they did hire Illumination, so it's not like they didn't.
Showgirl's a bad movie on purpose.
I'm just surprised about like I in my head I'm thinking like, yeah, of course they would by default do the thing where like the demon's like, oh, 2 souls, because like it's a baby or whatever, and that's like the joke of like, yeah, there's like another life in you.
But that's in isolation though.
But it's I meant like it's normal to it's very normal.
It is. Even like, Dark Souls does that.
The default assumption is that like you have another thing in you. You have something living in you, and it's like it just, I don't know, it's weird to I guess because of the way that I look at
but it's
it.
The point is it's not in isolation though, it's in connection with everything else.
No, I'm just saying that like that is like my first instinct of hearing that would have just been to fall back on like, yeah, that seems tropey. That seems like what you would expect to hear.
But it's just that even the tropey movies have a similar like point to them though. It's like how more or less the point of Alien is to express the fear of sexual assault to men. Like that's basically what's happening.
I just don't.
One of the
I could.
That's not
you
the
can
point
say that, and I would be like, yeah, okay, I can understand
that's
that
the through
interpretation
line between the assault and impregnating of all of the male characters with the face huggers and everything.
It is, but it's also the point is also to show that corporations treat people as disposable. Like it's one of the tools. It's definitely.
Alien's one of the more layered things ever.
Yeah,
there's a lot happening in Alien. Yeah, it does have corporate commentary, but it also is about that. Like that is the design of the monsters.
It is, yeah, 100%, and even down to things like, I mean, there's a lot of sexual subtext to a lot of the aggressions in Alien, like for example the magazine thing, which is just wild and easily the worst part of the movie, but not because of what it is, but just because the acting is terrible. It's like, oh, I'm watching a movie from '74. Do you know the one where
I can't remember this very very clearly?
The android attacks Yeah, the android attacks Ashley, or not Ashley, Ripley, and tries to choke her with a magazine by deep throating her with a magazine, a rolled up magazine.
Oh, in Aliens.
No, the first Alien.
Was there an android in the first one?
Yeah, the
remember.
one
Yeah.
played by
There's always an android. There has to be an android
They're
on
blurring
the,
together
on the,
for me.
on the cruise.
I don't remember his name, but the one played by the Bilbo
Lance
actor.
Hendrickson, isn't it?
I forget his name.
Wait.
Yeah,
I
that's
think you're
like
thinking of
the
Every
second
time you
name.
try to, every time I have to recall names live, I like destroy
know
my
the
own
name.
credibility of ever being
He's the
smart
Jack the
because
Ripper.
I'm just bad at names.
he plays Jack the Ripper and plays Bilbo, but yeah, the guy, don't remember the scene with the head where they have it's a bunch of cum, like it's white. I mean, I don't know if that's the subtext in that particular.
Yes,
instance.
the all the androids have jizz blood.
Yeah. I don't know if that was on purpose, but it might have been as well. It doesn't.
But no,
doesn't
'cause,
necessarily-
I think it just.
the Alien
I think it just looks
franchise
like
is about-
synthetic blood.
It's about the exploitation of labor in human bodies, and that comes through, and that's made so thoroughly that the alien themselves do that in the assault sort of way, while the corporations do it in the let's throw human lives at all of our problems and for profit way.
Yeah.
There's no winning in that setting. It's a
No,
bad time.
that's one of the types of.
I beg to differ. Ripley seemed to have won pretty well. She threw.
She got
out of
cryo
the-
frozen.
Ripley does not
it's one of the-
survive the
She does
Alien
not, no.
movies. I don't
Well,
think she
not
won.
all of them, but number 2.
It's interesting because Alien is one of the types of horror movies that is related to natural threats to people. In this case, natural being corporations, and also aliens.
Are
But anyway, audience, that's my review of Evil Dead Rise. It was good. It was a good time. It has funny, crazy scenes. It's a lot to watch. It was very entertaining all the way through. But I came away with it from just a real weird vibe about what the fuck its point was, because it has. It feels too much. It feels like too much of a through line to be coincidental. But also, I'm like, why would that be what they're going for? I don't understand. Like the same movie that hires a trans dude to play a trans dude and does like so much right is also seemingly making the opposite argument with all of its doing. So I'm just saying, if you watch this movie, let me know if you come away with a weird vibe or not. It's a weird through line.
I mean, they do that all the time, though, right?
Makes
I mean,
me
you
wanna
have
go,
stuff
makes
where
me
you
want to
have,
go back and like
They do,
find
yeah.
like check out like what was being quoted at various points. There's various parts of the movie where they read a book or like a real life book, or they quote something from something, like in their demon chanting and stuff. They're like quoting like something else, like a poem, and it makes me want to go back and see those scenes, or have transcripts of those scenes and just be like, does this play into what's happening narratively? Does the prologue play in? Because that I'm not sure if that was just like a cold open to be like, and there's evil, or if it also ties into what was happening in the main
Evil.
narrative. But the whole movie made me go
It's good
I mean,
when they do
that's-
that.
That's the point of a movie, I guess. It's supposed to make you think.
Yeah, but I
About
don't know if I
time.
want it to be making people think in that direction.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that has worrying
that's-
implications.
Then that's your job to write a script, make
Yeah.
a 3-hour video about it, and inform the
I
masses.
considered it, but I don't have access to the movie, and I'm not fucking watching it in theaters again every time I want to think about it. So for now,
Well, you're not gonna be like Jenny Nicholson, just go to the movie 4 times.
Jenny Nicholson, I don't know how she works. I don't know how she does that. She has very thoughtful videos that she makes very quickly in many cases. And it feels like she literally just watched a movie once, came home, and had like the most fucking like involved takes possible. And she also like is
She cosplays
at the
she's
same
so
time.
her
She
videos
says
are
she goes back to
like her
to the
video
theater
her
multiple
videos
times.
are her videos are so well spoken. She sounds scripted, but she doesn't seem to be reading from a script. So I also don't know how she records her videos. It tripped me up. Like I don't know how she's.
Isn't she? Wait, what are you talking about? She's sitting right in front of the computer with the script open.
She does.
I guess I
yeah.
just don't understand people who can sit there and look at the camera separate from the script, or just
she's-
like wander, their eyes just wander around the whole video, and I'm like, how the fuck? No, how are you not reading the script?
Because she's
What the fuck?
because she's
I can't-
memorized it. I think she memorizes
Yeah.
like a page of it, records it, and then continues. Like she has She breaks it. She breaks
It's
up
so
the
much
stuff
work.
in a.
Yeah,
it-
people
it is
people
a lot
told
of
me
work,
that my style was too stiff in the Annihilation video, so I tried to like print out the script and like memorize chunks of them at a time, and then like do some variation of like either speaking it off the cuff or like paraphrasing it. Completely impossible. I 100% cannot do anything even resembling that. Like I
It's so
literally had to
difficult.
give up, delay my recording of my Monster Hunter video by 2 weeks so I could order a teleprompter and then do it and then try again with the teleprompter once I figured out how to make that work, because I could not do any version of that whatsoever. It was impossible.
Yeah, that's fine. It is definitely like it's definitely a fucking skill. Some people just have that ability. But yeah, that is definitely the way that she goes about it. You can see like in a lot of any of the videos where she has her glasses on, you can see the script is right there in front of her on the
Yeah.
computer screen. And like the way that like her cuts are so obvious. She has like these really obvious cuts where she's clearly like, okay, and that's it. She doesn't remember, like that's where her memorization of that page ends. But yeah, I remember she was talking about that she got mad at a movie because she had to go back like twice or something just to get notes, because like so much was happening. It was hard for her to like take notes of the movie. She was like, I go and watch the movie once and then I have feelings about it. And then I write down those feelings, and then I go back to the movie and watch it again and write down things that happen in the movie, and then combine those two feelings and the things that happen in the movie. Which sounds like that sounds like a pretty exhausting process. Going to the movies twice just to like
I know,
do your
right?
job sounds like a lot of work.
I'd be
But it's funny. It's just like
once you have any level of audience, I'd be terrified of talking about anything without having like double checking it, because I don't want to be that guy. I just don't want to be like just blatantly horribly wrong about stuff on the internet. I'll never recover emotionally. But anyway, guys,
It's so easy to be though.
I think it's about time to wrap this up. So this has been Dialogue Choices.
Gross
Bye.
Don't come
Bye.
back. I swear to God.
Please do come back.